Even
I mean, look, you opened up your thing talking about Jefferson. Jefferson won the election of 1800 in the exact same way that Trump tried to win the election, nearly the exact same way.
Cam doesn't believe that.
To a vote in the House, in the chambers of Congress.
Cam has to know he's lying here. That's bad. There's no shot. There's no shot. There's no shot.
Wasn't in place until the 1870s after the Hayes election.
Of course it wasn't.
And you understand, of course, that the 12th Amendment wasn't in place at the time of the Jefferson election. So how can you say, and you're going to answer this question, how can you say that Jefferson did the exact same thing?
You know what you should actually say here? Say, you know what, you want to reindustrialize the Rust Belt? You know what we need to do that? Cheap labor. Immigrants willing to work for cheap in the Rust Belt cities.
Yeah, so I have a degree in economics that's relevant to this, but...
And you're citing the 78% paycheck number?
They're a mixed bag. Tariffs, as far as operating within the economy as it exists right now, tariffs are one of the few things that you can get away with in like a liberal system that are actually advantageous towards your workers in terms of undoing the damage of the neoliberal revolution. So America and Canada used to make a lot of stuff, big factories.
The fundamental reason why I don't support the border bill is because the emergency powers granted in it are already largely powers the president has anyway and refuses to exercise. On top of that, those
he did exercise it after the bill failed to pass. He did exercise that. He did do that executive order, which is probably illegal. I think he's already been sued for it. It'll probably get struck down.
Yeah. Anyway, so sorry. Unfortunately, we got bogged down into an immigration discussion. Look, I think immigration in general is good. I don't really find.
Please, at least mention the monetary independence of the Fed. Please.
There's certainly some problems.
Please, it has to come up at least once. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support the channel, and I'll make sure to reply.
Now, is there anybody who wants to take us off? Anything that wants to be responded to? Since Pisco grabbed it first, he gets it.
Yeah, I want to hear from all the people who are supporting Vance. Did Trump lose the 2020 election? Did he try to install himself in office? And has Vance said that he would have followed along with Trump's plan?
Yeah, sure, he did say that. Trump did lose the election. I don't think that Trump won the election. I also don't think that he broke any laws. In addition to what you said, Pisco, earlier, when you
maybe you can make the argument for Trump himself. The plan explicitly tried to violate the Electoral Count Act.
Losing the election, that's fair. He does fail to answer that question every single time it's asked to him.
Isn't that disqualifying?
Well, Pisco, I was not finished, so I'm going to continue now. So Tim Walz dances around every single question that is asked to him. When he was asked about Tiananmen Square, he went on about, rambled about his time as a teacher, his time in the military, and then was a deer in headlights.
Wasn't he in Tiananmen Square when
asked him the question a second time? He
was a teacher? Wasn't that?
He lied about allowing abortion at 9 months. He lied about overturning protections for failed abortion babies. He lied about his son witnessing a shooting. He lied about serving in war. He lied about Trump building less than 2% of the wall, which wasn't even astronomically close. He lied about shootings in
I'll fight you on all those.
The list goes on and on and on.
I'll fight you on all those. I'll fight you on all those.
I'm just listening, man. I'm not trying to go into them right now, but I'm happy to.
I'll fight you on all of those points, but let's grant them.
Yeah.
Isn't it fucking disqualifying to say, yeah, you say, your own words, Trump lost the election, and Vance is saying he wouldn't have certified it. How can you fucking support this guy?
Wait, yeah, so I have a difference of opinion on it. I have plenty of differences of opinions with Trump as well, right? I don't agree with burning of the American flag. I don't agree with banning bump stocks. There are tons of things that I disagree with Trump on.
You began the endorsement of J.D. Vance by appealing to his constitutional duties. Why do you have any faith that he would preside over the certification of an election that he would lose?
Yeah, I think the question would be more so, do I have faith that he's not going to break the law? And I think that I have just a
That's what they tried to do for the first time. I don't know what his point about.
Assume it's legal, right? Assume that it's completely legal to do what Trump did. Put legality to the side here. Should you support someone who is going to take the methods that he said to not certify the election and to certify instead the person who lost the election? Even
I mean, look, you opened up your thing talking about Jefferson. Jefferson won the election of 1800 in the exact same way that Trump tried to win the election, nearly the exact same way.
Cam doesn't believe that.
To a vote in the House, in the chambers of Congress.
Cam has to know he's lying here. That's bad. There's no shot. There's no shot. There's no shot.
Wasn't in place until the 1870s after the Hayes election.
Of course it wasn't.
And you understand, of course, that the 12th Amendment wasn't in place at the time of the Jefferson election. So how can you say, and you're going to answer this question, how can you say that Jefferson did the exact same thing if the constitutional amendment giving the vice president the power, the ceremonial power, and the legislation at issue wasn't even It wasn't even enforced.
What I meant by
that
was the legal. Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. If you okay. So the route that Eastman wanted Trump to go through was both chambers of the chambers of Congress individually voting by state through their representatives.
He wanted Vice Pence to unilaterally not certify the election, and then it would then be thrown to the House delegation.
Cam, you are comparing an apples and oranges situation because the presence of the Electoral Count Act precludes that very route.
No, the theory that Eastman wanted
conceded
that it violated the Electoral Count Act.
He would be violating what?
He conceded he would violate. No, he didn't concede that he would be violating the Electoral Count Act. Have you read the memo? I have it in front of me. No, he didn't. He said the Electoral Count Act altogether is unconstitutional.
Which is why he thought it was okay to violate it.
Not pass scrutiny at all.
And so, where are the communications?
But regardless, the Thomas Jefferson.
Oh yeah, you want to move away from that, don't you? You're running like your feet are hot.
Wait. The communications to the vice president's staff, you deny those exist?
Cite them. Where are they?
You deny those exist, yes or no? Wait.
Show them.
So are you saying that you're not sure?
Like I'm in kindergarten. Cite them, Pisco.
Yeah. So it sounds like you haven't.
On your feet, you're running.
You haven't. It sounds like you haven't read any of the relevant filings of the Jack Smith indictment.
Have you read the Eastman memo?
In the Jack Smith indictment. If you did, you would have read the email from.
You're right. I haven't read the full Jack Smith thing. It's like 900 pages. I read the analysis.
It's 123, but okay.
Anything new that we didn't already know.
Wait. What did the email say,
The 12th Amendment wasn't in operation then.
It showed us nothing new.
This was an email. This was an email from Eastman to the administration saying we need to do one more violation of Electoral Count Act. In addition, there are other communications that are attested to by witnesses where he says, yeah, we would have lost 9-0. So those are two times that I'm citing now. Are you denying where he is acknowledging that there are intrinsic violations of the Electoral Count Act at issue?
John Eastman believes
those are his words.
Well, you asked me a question. You're gonna let me answer. It's not his words, actually. John Eastman said that the Electoral Count Act is fully unconstitutional, and he deferred to the section of the Constitution that says that if things are not rooted in the Constitution, then they are not valid law of the land.
I think the logic of J.D. Vance, at least what he has answered when he's answered the question, would you certify the 2020 election? For instance, this most recent clip where he gets asked like 5 or 6 times, what he says is, well, we've pointed out problems, and he talks about Twitter censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story and studies that show that Trump lost.
Oh, he should have brought it up. Now all the conservatives are going to harp on that, aren't they?
Logic. Like, do you think that that's a responsible logic for the vice president to basically say, and this is essentially what he's saying, a social media company didn't publicize a story that a newspaper wrote, so I'm going to use fake sets of electors or, change essentially fundamentally the decision-making process of our democracy?
Well,
Does that seem reasonable?
I would assume by your logic that this would be the case, considering I assume you fully concede to the New York indictments, yeah? Because that was almost the entire basis for those indictments.
Why aren't you answering my question? You think that's a good logic?
No, it doesn't. It's not illegal. I have my own opinions on whether or not
I would say it's not a matter.
Well, yeah, I don't think it should be done. I already conceded. Wait, hold up.
No, how can you vote for someone who would have done that?
I already conceded that I disagree with him on this, but by your logic, this should be immediately disqualifying for you, considering the entire basis of the felony convictions on Trump were that he suppressed information from the public.
But Cam, listen.
No,
we're not talking about really quick.
Are they in the garbage?
We're not talking about business.
We're not talking about
that.
When I hold you to your own logic, we don't.
Well, no, but
I've got it.
Okay, there's 4.
Oh my God! Already.
There's 4 people talking at the same time, so it's getting to a point where I can't hear it. I just want to quickly give Pondering a moment to chime in because I do want to. I will stay on this topic for a little bit, maybe give it 10, 15 minutes, but I do want to make sure that his question is not just we're talking about the 2020 election, 2020 election results. We're going to talk about that.
God damn, I want to hear Pisco got hard on that. No.
I understand that's really passionate for the liberals on this podcast. Pondering?
Yeah, so I was going to say, Cam did ask a question, and I wanted to make sure I cited my sources. So it's an email, and I'll send you the link, Cam. Sure. It was an email dated on January 6, 2021. It was an email from John Eastman to Greg Jacobs, who I think was like counsel to Vice President Pence. And the quote is, so now that the precedent has been set that the Electoral Count Act is not quite so sacrosanct as was previously claimed, I implore you to consider one more relatively minor violation and adjourn for 10 days. So yes, he was conceding that what he proposed would violate the Electoral Count Act. And you can say that it's not constitutional or not. That's neither here nor there. He is proposing a violation.
I'm not saying that.
Well,
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's what Eastman believed. So Eastman believed that the Electoral Count Act.
You disagree with the man who came up with the plan? That the plan violated the law?
And then, in addition to that, Article 6, Section 2 of the Constitution says that if things
contradict the Constitution. But you, regardless of whether it's legal or not,
was I finished, or are you rambling on while I'm talking?
Let's let Cam finish quickly, and then we'll have Pondering and Pisco respond.
Yeah. So John Eastman's position was that the Electoral Count Act of 1887 is unconstitutional because it directly contradicts the 12th Amendment of the United States Constitution. His legal theory
he thought it was illegal, which is why he was okay with violating it.
The Constitution disqualifies anything from being federal law that is not rooted in the Constitution or that directly contradicts the Constitution, that the Electoral Count Act is not valid. Now, I don't know if I agree with this or not. I'm not a legal scholar, but John Eastman did cite legal scholars from Harvard that agree with him, vigorously agree with him.
Respectfully, the fact that he believes that the ECA is unconstitutional is relevant. It's not decided as unconstitutional. It's still binding law. I can agree. I can believe that murder is unconstitutional, but I don't have carte blanche to go commit murder. So at the end of the day, it is a fact that what he is proposing, by his own words, is a violation of the ECA. And if you deny that, you are wrong.
It doesn't even matter, right? Like Cam, suppose that it were technically legal for the president to order the armed forces to go and hold the Senate at gunpoint and to get him to gavel in the joint session of Congress to gavel in president. Suppose that were technically legal for whatever reason, and someone said, "Yeah, I would support the president if he tried to do that." Could you ever imagine supporting that person?
Yeah, I can.
Can you explain to someone who lost an election to take methods, even if they're legal, to change the results?
Sure. So I'm glad that we're conceding now that it was legal.
I'm not.
He literally said it was a hypothetical. Are you kidding me, bro?
I have to stop you. I am absolutely not conceding that is.
Well, you've moved away from it.
No.
He said,
you're not equipped. You're not equipped to have the legal discussion. I don't want to bog down this panel on a conversation that you're ill-equipped for when you cited the 12th Amendment of the Electoral Count Act at a period of time 70 years before it was passed. Right. And so, no, you are not equipped for a legal discussion.
Right, I'm not equipped.
I am, for the purpose of our argument, saying suppose it were legal, but I am not conceding that. So shut the fuck up.
Well, I'm glad you admit that you're not equipped to have that conversation. So go ahead, Pisco.
Right. Yeah. Pisco?
Well, no,
no. I was saying, I was using your own words against you. I'm saying I'm glad you're conceding that you're not equipped to have that conversation with
Right. No, I'm not conceding that.
Let's give. It's a little bit of a 2-on-1 right now.
Oh man, oh boy.
So I do want to make sure that we give Cam Higby some time to respond here before going to other people, because it's kind of the panel's kind of tilted one way right now. So Cam, one last response before we go around the room.
Yeah, so I can disagree. I agree with you that just because something is legal does not make it okay, i.e. slavery. But I can disagree with those actions to varying degrees, right? I think that using a legal loophole to try to maintain power is bad, and I disagree with it. I think that holding members of Congress at gunpoint is much worse than that. So yeah, I think overall, Trump tried to use an esoteric legal theory deployed by John Eastman. I disagree with the use
power.
Of that legal
even if
theory.
we grant that, that's absolutely insane that you would still support that person who blatantly wants to overturn an election, even if it's a legal loophole.
I still think that Trump is overall the better candidate.
Because he lost. Wait,
I want to throw it over to Hutch. Wait, I'm sorry. We got to throw it over to Hutch because he's been waiting patiently, and I want to have this brought back to J.D. Vance. Hutch, what do you think about J.D. Vance not answering in these interviews whether or not Donald Trump lost the 2020 election?
Well, to me, it's utterly disqualifying. I did want to ask a question, though. I wanted to pose it. I wanted to pose a hypothetical, because obviously Kamala is going to be the one that's presiding over the Senate or the Congress when they certify the results in 2025. If she were to pursue some esoteric, as you say, legal theory, and if she was ultimately successful in certifying the election in her favor, in the case that Trump actually won, would you be sitting here saying, "Hey, fair play," or would you call that disqualifying?
Yeah, if she didn't break any laws, I wouldn't be trying to lock her up. But what I would do is I would call her out on hypocrisy due to her current rhetoric related to the situation. That's probably about as far as I go with it. Yeah,
so that to me seems like real quick. That to me seems like the wrong thing to be focusing on. You would be more upset about that than the fact that she disenfranchised probably tens of millions of voters.
She stole an election.
Like that seems to be the main problem here.
You guys keep using steal. If it's
oh my God, he's going to now debate the semantics here.
The election, it's just pursuing an alternate route to count the votes. You do it through electoral, or through like representation in Congress.
Making it so the winner of the election loses. Is that better?
The winner of the popular vote loses almost every single year.
No. First of all, that's
exactly.
not true. I don't know why the fuck you would say that. That's happened like 4 or 5 times out of 40 elections. That's not true.
And
we're not doing the popular vote. No, the subversion here wasn't of the popular vote.
It was of the state's vote.
It was an analogy, okay? Pisco. Do you know how that works?
Yeah, so
an analogy.
Oh my God, you're misrepresenting You're misrepresenting of what happened. We're not upset because the popular vote was subverted in a way that's allowed by the Constitution. What we're upset about is subverting the Constitution.
Yeah, so the popular vote is often subverted. So I don't see much difference in subverting the popular vote and subverting the Electoral College if it's done through a means that was installed in the Constitution.
One of them is meaningless in the outcome of the election, and the other is the one that
it's meaningless because we've made it meaningless, Hutch.
It's meaningless as a matter of law. We're talking about changing the vote that is meaningful, the Electoral College vote, and flipping it artificially.
Also, you're going to debate, like, he was trying to overturn the popular votes of the individual states, right? Like, the reason Arizona's votes went to Biden was because Biden won the popular vote in their state. Like, he was directly trying to overturn that with the fake electoral slates.
To represent the people in their respective districts, it would just be them voting for the president rather than electors voting for the president. And you actually have right now, you actually have no way of, like, ensuring that the person that a state or district votes for, that the elector is actually going to vote for that person anyway. We have faithless electors.
Wait, you actually do.
No,
most of the states have laws banning faithless electors.
And you know what? Those laws don't mean anything because it's just a fine and maybe a misdemeanor if you faithlessly vote against state law. It doesn't do anything. No, every state that has laws against faithless electors, it's just a fine. It means nothing. You still cast your vote as you want it. No, they can, but they haven't. They can, but they haven't.
Okay, but
what are they going to make it a felony?
That the Supreme Court has stated that that's allowed. The states can put.
And every legal scholar agrees that electors are essentially free to vote for whoever the fuck they want to, because the repercussions for voting against their state and being a faithless elector is virtually nothing.
That's up to the state to decide.
The Electoral College is already kind of a problematic system, but if you're arguing essentially that it's like sacrosanct and whatnot, look, Cam kind of does have a point there, but I think the context in all this is important, which is that, the average American, and I'm not talking median, I'm not talking, we're going to play around with numbers and stuff. The average American is making right around $31,000 a year right now.
Why are we moving into this already?
What of your country is living paycheck to paycheck.
But 70. Oh, we got the beam number. Let's go.
People should care about is, like, a few lawyers have an issue with, basically the Trump campaign going through and, so-called stealing the election. Yeah, they have a right to contest the vote.
Did they try to steal the election, Kevin? Yes or no? Did they lose?
Did
Trump lose? Did Trump lose? Yes or no? Yeah.
Thanks for the follow, Ferrano.
You have a right to contest the results
of an election. Did Trump lose the election? Yes or no?
You know what? And he tried to contest it legally, and then he resorted to illegal means after all those failed.
Results, right? Is the thing. So the question is, did they go outside the bounds of that and actually, try to steal it? I think the point that Cam was kind of bringing up and is basically that the Electoral College is already kind of this arbitrary system as it is. If we're talking about the popular vote, for example, you could very easily, within the bounds of legal framework in the U.S., fully constitutionally get somebody in power that does not have the consent of the American public in terms of the popular vote. That's easy to do. In Canada, for example, our leader only got about 40% at his height. So it's like that. Yeah, in our system.
Yeah, it happened in 2016 and it happened in 2000. I remember it.
But here's the thing, right, Pisco? In our systems, there's a difference between what's seen as legally legitimate versus legitimacy from popularity. There's a question to be had whether that makes sense or not. But I think what's important to do is
not appealing to popularity.
I think what's important
you don't care about it. You just said,
wait, 1 second. You're both talking at the same time. Kevin, could you wrap it up in the next 20-25 seconds so we can have other people respond?
No, I'll just wrap it up by saying, I know that you guys wanted to keep this on the topic, like, Dylan and Danbo want to keep it on the topic of JD Vance.
Yeah, I want to see if we can bring it back.
Yeah, what's very important.
It's not happening, bro. It's not happening.
There are more issues than just
Pisco won't let it. Rightly so. Rightly so. This is easily the worst point for JD Vance.
By essentially calling for war with Iran, essentially. That's what the implication was. And JD Vance opened with saying, hey, let's reindustrialize the Rust Belt. I think that that's important, right? Do you disagree, or is it only this one issue that matters?
I wonder how he plans to do that.
Foreign policy absolutely matters. You don't care about it. You just said, who cares, because Americans, have $31,000.
Wait, I don't care. Wait.
Let him finish. Kevin, you gotta let him respond quickly.
So what I'm going to say is, thousands of Americans have bled and died for our Constitution. I'm not going to have it be sullied by a Canadian who doesn't understand the importance of our Constitution. But on your point, yes, it's true.
He should not have mentioned he's Canadian. It's going to be held against him forever.
That's why your child's reading of what Tim Walz's statement was at the beginning there, as though that we're saying we're absolutely going to go to war with Iran, when on the other side of the equation, you have J.D. Vance, who is explicitly being way more hawkish than the administration is currently, or Kamala Harris is, or Tim Walz is for that matter, on Iran, saying explicitly saying we need to be in Israel even further. We need to support Israel even further. He's supported by Netanyahu, the regime. How can you possibly say that what would be preferable, if what you care about is war with Iran, to have Donald Trump, who is actually egging on war with Iran?
No, I didn't say that.
He also assassinated Soleimani there in his first time.
Context there. The reality is
he was just providing context. Okay.
They're just that Trump is, yes, you're right, more on their side. Here's the thing about Trump, though. Here's the one thing about Trump. I'm not saying that he's going to do this, but he is a known wild card. That's why they don't like him. That's why the Pentagon, the establishment, the ruling class don't really like him too much, because yes, he's on the record. We're going to, support Israel even more than Kamala wants to. But he does have a proven track record of sometimes doing the opposite and actually doing diplomacy. I mean, he did do the Abraham Accords. He did actually.
The Abraham Accords were pretty favorable to Israel.
He has a big mouth about,
I don't know what that point is about.
We're going to go and bomb people and stuff. But in reality, yeah, and he did.
I got this in the mail. It's so funny. Forever friendly to Jewish people.
What does that say to you?
Dick Cheney would prefer. Go ahead.
Well, what is more important? Donald Trump, when he came into office, he dropped more bombs in Somalia, for example, in his first year than Obama's entire 8 years. And you seem to think that an endorsement from Cheney because he thinks Donald Trump is insane, not because he agrees with Kamala's policies. You think that matters less? You think that matters more than what Trump did when he was in office?
He thinks that Trump is insane because Trump occasionally, I'm not saying he always does this, he usually toes the line, but occasionally will sit down with opponents of the U.S. And here's the thing. What
did he get accomplished when he did that with Kim Jong-un?
That is not why Dick Cheney thinks. That's not why Dick Cheney thinks Trump is insane.
What's up? I hear you.
Josiah, here's the thing. You do diplomacy with people that you are rivals with, right? It's not, we did diplomacy with the UK and Israel. Great. Okay. No, what matters is actually sitting down with, your rivals and working something out, right? That's kind of what's important. And yeah, Trump did do that. And guess what? He also did the other stuff. He also did the other stuff too. I'm not saying
like the Iran nuclear deal, Kevin? Like the Iran nuclear deal?
I'm not saying that he's somebody who's like, he's going to just focus on reindustrializing the Rust Belt and he's going to do all that other stuff and leave it up to Israel and stuff to deal with. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is Tim Walz and Harris are on the record. They are 100% behind Israel.
You know what? You should actually say here. You know what? You want to reindustrialize the Rust Belt? You know what we need to do that? Cheap labor, immigrants willing to work for cheap in the Rust Belt cities. Import all the illegal Haitians.
That's important context here.
Name one thing.
You can talk all your stuff about legal theory, but lives are on the line.
Let's hold this for a second. Wait, I'm sorry.
Name one.
We gotta hold this. I'm sorry, Pisco. We're supposed to be talking about J.D. Vance. We've now pivoted all the way over to foreign policy. That was supposed to be one of the bonus topics. I'm sorry to shut that down, but do you guys want to have that as the bonus topic instead of FEMA if you guys are interested in foreign policy?
I'd prefer that.
They're both very relevant, though, right?
They are both relevant, but it seems like you guys are trying to get
I prefer the FEMA thing. Oh, man.
$7.5 billion to Israel.
Okay. We'll keep that. Let's bring back a J.D. Vance. Pisco, we'll start the foreign policy section with that, okay? Okay, fantastic. Back to J.D. Vance. Hutch, I did want to quickly throw something out, a question to RC, actually. I was interested. RC, you were talking about one thing that you liked about J.D. Vance. It's probably something that you probably also like about Trump is an outsider. This is not somebody who comes from the traditional political establishment. What are the things that make that more beneficial than the time that Tim Walz has spent in office? Because J.D. Vance has only served 2 years in the Senate. What is the benefits of being an outsider versus the political experience Tim Walz has?
Well, the benefits of being an outsider is just that. You have different experience in the private sector. I think that that's a very beneficial use to put into our government versus people that, like I said, it's very questionable where their massive amounts of income are coming from, as they're just public servants for serving for us, serving for the country. And I think that having the experience of running a company, a successful company at that, and knowing how to manage the people,
gang, what's up, Sergeant? Welcome back.
Is very necessary for the country. I think for any
concerned about his ties to Peter Thiel? Are you concerned about his ties to Peter Thiel?
Why should I be?
Because Peter Thiel's kind of associated with a crowd that, for example, is very hawkish with respect to Israel. It's very like this kind of.
They're immediately getting back to foreign policy. Oh no!
Situation. Are you at all?
Well,
and there are a lot of reasons.
He was associated with him years ago when he was against Trump.
So I'm asking,
he's changed.
So do you have any problem with or suspicion of J.D. Vance's previous associations with these individuals?
Well, it sounds like you're operating in the field of hearsay. If you have a concrete reason for me to combat with why I should be worried about that, then I can contend with it. But I'm not going to contend with hearsay.
Well, you're saying that he has good business associations and that he's learned a lot from running these successful business ventures. And I'm telling you that there's a lot of criticism, rightly or wrongly, some related to his association with, for example, Peter Thiel, who is known to be, I think that this is not even up for debate, pretty hawkish on Israel. And I'm wondering if that concerns you.
Oh, Pisco, do you have like a crime he committed or anything shady he did specifically, or we're just going off of like conjecture?
What we're talking about, is associations.
Right about that. But he's changed his view over the years. If you look at J.D. Vance in 2018, it's completely different than what he's saying today. And the question is he lying or did he change?
Okay, here's let me simplify. Two things to Pisco, and then I want to go down the list because Lactoid, Cam, and Hutch have been waiting. Pisco, number one. Do you buy that J.D. Vance has changed since he shifted to a more pro-Trump from anti-Trump Republican position, and that could have impacted these connections to Peter Thiel? And why would these connections matter in the first place?
Yeah, so I think that what's the phrase in Spanish? I know it. Dime con quién tú andas y te diré quién eres, which means tell me with who you go and I'll tell you who you are. There's this much ado about like, well, these are just business as usual. These are politicians. Look at, and I'm just saying what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you're going to look at the history of Kamala Harris or these people and say that, it's a boon, actually, it's a benefit to J.D. Vance that he has these business connections or he has his previous associations, let's talk about them and see what benefit they are. And let's actually dig deeper. So I'm not saying that, I think, by the way, that, I'm a little skeptical.
He was associated with him. He worked in VC.
No. I know that, Kevin. But what I'm saying.
Oh my God, they are infighting. The conservatives are infighting. Oh no.
Or anything like that. But what I'm saying is like, oh yeah, like just because Peter Thiel might have been involved in some shady stuff, J.D. Vance must be just as bad and also doing shady shit.
I am
responding.
Right?
Not like Pisco claimed, but okay.
And by the way, the only thing I was going to say earlier, I'll just get it out now.
Well, Cam, I do want to. It was a question directly to Pisco. I do have you on the list. You can go next. I just want to make sure he has time to finish.
I'm responding directly to, I'm sorry, RC, who was promoting, saying these are benefit, working for these VCs, it shows he's an outsider. And what I'm hearing also is like, well, he's changed completely from when he was running those VCs. And so what I want is a coherent message about why we should think that these previous associations or this previous business is a boon as opposed to being some kind of baggage where he's beholden to these actors, which Kevin seems to think he might have been if he hadn't changed his view. On the specific question, the other question that Dylan asked, which was, do you think he's changed? I think he's power hungry. Just like he said that Trump was America's Hitler, I think he'll say anything or everything to anybody in order to get power and to stay with power. And that's why I think he's a vicious politician who should resign immediately.
Okay, I want to make sure RC has a chance to respond because that was directly to RC. Then we have a lot of people. We got Cam, Lactoid, Hutch, and Kevin who are all waiting. But I'm happy that people have things they want to say. So, RC?
Sure. I'll keep it short. But I heard you say a lot. I have yet to hear you say any criticism of Peter Thiel. What is it that you have against him?
So there are people I am not alleging this, but I know that a lot of conservatives, a lot of populist conservatives, I'm not saying I have these concerns. I have a concern about being overly hawkish on Israel, overly promoting of the hawkishness of Israel. So that's one concern that people have raised. So that's number one. That's a concrete thing that people have raised. Other people are concerned with the kind of tech influence with respect to immigration, as another example, where they're critical of the influence that they're going to just bring in a bunch of foreign labor to kind of supplant or substitute for American high-skilled labor, increase the number of visas. Those are kind of concerns that I hear a lot of populist right-wingers raise. And
unironically based.
I'm asking you, do you share those concerns, or do you think he's changed the script, or do you think that you can't read into it?
I think it's more nuanced than that.
Although I don't really know how immigrants are replacing high-skilled labor. They're not usually very high-skilled.
Agree with all of Peter Thiel's personal opinions, but he's run multi-billion-dollar organizations, companies, corporations. So you can learn a lot from that and apply that to our government, where, for example, the post office is failing in a destroyed organization that does not produce. It's running on a deficit, so you can learn a lot from people like Peter Thiel.
All he means by the post office is
Peter Thiel. Peter
destroyed?
Thiel is not a criminal.
I mean, I don't know much about the post office. I just know anecdotally it works fine for me.
Such a big issue about that.
Okay, I want to throw it over. So there's people waiting. So Hutch has been waiting. So it's going to be. I'm sorry we're doing it in a weird order, but I know what people want to respond to. So
Econoboy wanted to talk about the post office.
Cam, LactoidTV. I'm sorry, he's been waiting the most, but it makes the most sense rhythmically. Then Kevin. So Hutch.
Well, just on
and
that.
Econoboy. And then Econoboy had something to say.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, just on that point, the post office is not a business; it's a public service. It's not supposed to run on a surplus or anything like that. But I wanted to take.
Well, I think they did design it. I think technically it is supposed to run on a surplus now because it's a government corporation or whatever.
Experience in the private sector. People use the same kind of argument to lobby for Trump in 2016. There's this pervasive notion it seems like in right-wing circles right now, and it's not just in right-wing circles, but that outsiders can come in with no experience in government and efficiently get things done in ways that people who have been a part of the system for years or decades maybe can't. This was just not, this just did not happen. So I would just appeal to Trump's track record. He ended up having a pretty abysmal first term in terms of his legislative agenda. The very first thing he tried to do was repeal the ACA. He failed. The only major piece of legislation that he got done was tax cuts that Republicans had.
What's up, Bob Marley? Welcome back. I don't know why I'm muted like I'm in the call. It was instinct.
Sure if he played any role in actually crafting that legislation. He presided over the longest government shutdown in history, as far as I'm aware.
Just to get his
he was the first
border wall funding, bro.
Since 1992. So I guess my
Thanks
question
for the follow.
Is like, where do you get this
they're a bot,
confidence
of course.
Vance, by virtue of the fact
I shouldn't even thank kick followers
this
ever.
necessarily means that he can get in there and get stuff done?
So you're asking me, right?
Yeah.
Because I know that there's like set people in turn. Okay. So I would ask you, what are like two of the main things you can learn from working in politics that Vance lacks?
Well, one thing that you need if you want to be an efficient lawmaker is how to actually like build coalitions and work with other politicians.
So collaboration and communication. You learn that in business.
Huge.
Yeah, you learn that in business. So how does
I don't know if there's as many competing factions in business as there are in politics.
I'm responding to him. I would like to hear his answer. How does he not have that skill?
You're talking about private sector negotiations versus DC negotiations.
There's still human beings on both sides.
Wow,
right.
Crazy.
If this logic were true, though, like how does that apply to Trump? Do you think he lived up to that promise of him being this outsider that's going to be able to get in there and like force things to get done?
Yes, and I think he proved it.
In what way?
How the economy was doing, how our country was doing, how foreign nations were
policy did he even pass on the economy?
I mean, he applied the same strategies that he did in the private sector as the president. And I know that we were going to potentially go into foreign countries or foreign issues later on. But what I'm saying is that
he did the Abraham Accords. He pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, and now Iran has the ability to make nuclear weapons in 2 weeks. Thanks so much for the sub. I feel like I can't read it.
They learn negotiation.
Sugarima or whatever the fuck. I don't know. I couldn't read it. Thanks. It helps a lot right now.
There's a difference between running the government and running a private corporation. Focuses on short, medium-term profits in the interests of shareholders.
True.
Okay, a government is supposed to ideally think a little bit longer term and think about social investment. So when we're talking about
I don't even really know, like,
where did Tim Walz put government investment?
I don't think there are competing factors running a business to the same extent there are competing factors in Congress, competing factions in Congress.
These are good long-term investments for the country. But if you're talking about like the guy who's the CEO of Walmart, he's not just going to give away a bunch of money to random children at daycares because that's not in his short-term profit interest. It just doesn't make sense to say we should run the government like a corporation, or someone who runs a corporation can run the government. By the way, as far as I understand, J.D. Vance's record in the private sector is not particularly extensive, and most of his money that he got before he was a senator came from writing a book about growing up as a hillbilly. Not exactly very extensive private sector experience, at least if we're comparing J.D. Vance to Tim Walz, who chose a public sector route. It seems like a completely ridiculous, basically standard to say, oh,
so true, Joe Billy. Welcome back.
So therefore, he's better than the guy who's made what we would.
What if instead of debating this, they debated if KSI's new song
we're gonna have
is good or not?
Respond. Then we're going to Cam. Then we're going to Kevin and then Econ. The only reason I'm throwing Lactoid is because he wanted to say something to that specifically.
Well, yeah, he has years of experience as a corporate lawyer as well, right? So you have someone with a background corporate lawyer and doing VC work. It's selling a book, right? There's more than just he was at a VC firm for a little while, and that is business experience. You can't deny that. And corporate law is essentially the study of how businesses function.
Being a corporate lawyer is not running a business, and neither is writing a book, right?
Kamala Harris's private sector experience. She worked at McDonald's.
Now that made your point. That wasn't RC's
much more insightful,
point.
To be honest.
J.D. Vance has extensive experience running a business. That's not true. That's just not the case.
Okay, sure. This seems like hyper specific. That maybe that's the case.
That's how he's basing his votes.
No.
It would make sense to base your vote on correct things and not incorrect things.
I think what he's basing his vote on is like experience with business, right? And being a corporate attorney for several years and understanding how businesses work and litigating business issues absolutely is understanding how business works. So if we're being good faith here,
you've made a lot more sense than he has.
Yeah, sure.
You made a lot more sense than he has, but you still haven't.
You guys have been jumping over each other the whole fucking time. Just give me a second.
I've barely spoken during this section. To be fair.
Okay, then your three allies have been jumping over each other the whole time. I think it's fair for me to jump in and build upon a point that one of my allies is making, right?
I think it's absolutely the case. To run government
I think it absolutely. Hold on. So when RC is saying that, like, for him, having like financial literacy, understanding like how businesses are run, and wanting to run government more like a business, experience in that kind of field matters. And when you're saying, well, he just had some VC experience. First of all, VC experience is good, right? But also he had years of experience as a corporate lawyer, which is again litigating over business issues and understanding in a very minute detail how businesses are run from a legal perspective, which is again relevant to the government at work, right? If you're in the government, understanding how businesses work in a legal perspective is obviously relevant if you're going to be making laws or involved in the creation of laws. I think that's absolutely fair to say. And again, dude comes with a Yale law degree, which is like particularly more impressive than whatever Tim Walz has.
Cum laude,
the biggest proposal coming out of the J.D. Vance Trump ticket is something that pretty much every business leader, every economist has said would be disastrous.
Universal
for the economy,
tariffs, yep.
Which is raising a bunch of tariffs all over the place. If you want to talk about a pro-business candidate, it certainly isn't the guy who wants universal tariffs, who wants mass deportation. And so if we're going to have a policy discussion, who would be better at running the government, having the levers of power of government?
Okay, we're switching.
Probably not those guys.
We are switching around, and I do want to take the opportunity of the switch to throw it over.
I want to.
Oh, they're going to the next topic now. Did you see distribution analysis of Trump's tax policy? Yeah, I did. I didn't read it all yet.
I really want to quickly say on the prior thing that Pisco was asking. I think Cam was absolutely right in his analysis, but I think it's hilarious how, I don't agree with John Eastman, by the way, but John Eastman, even though he believes his position is correct, he said, yeah, he'd be stopped by the Supreme Court. And I think the Supreme Court really is the bulwark for our Constitution. Yet J.D. Vance is particularly better than Tim Walz on this because J.D. Vance actually supports laws to prevent court packing, which Tim Walz does not. In fact, Tim Walz is running with somebody who in the past has supported court packing.
Is court packing constitutional? Is court packing constitutional?
Wait.
At least they're pressing on that point. I don't. Oh my God, they won't.
This is not.
Yes or no? Dylan, can you stop him? Give me a second.
Okay, we'll give you a second. Will you answer that? Okay, I'll give you a second, but would you answer that question at the end of your second?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So court packing is legal as potentially. Now, I don't agree with it, but potentially John Eastman's theory is legal in the same way that faithless electors are.
You believe it's legal?
When you were saying, hold on, I just said yes. I started the sentence by saying yes, and now you're going to keep re-asking.
You said no. You said you don't agree with Eastman.
Let's let him finish quickly, Pisco.
No.
Okay,
I don't.
Does he not agree with Eastman that it is illegal?
I said I don't agree with Eastman personally, but when you were having the back and forth with Cam, you said just assume that it's legal. Isn't it bad regardless? And I understand that things can be a threat to the Constitution even if they're quote unquote legal. Eastman believed that despite the fact that what he thought was legal, he was going to be stopped by the Supreme Court. Now, imagine if Kamala Harris had her hands on the Supreme Court based on her history of statements, if she had packed it and she had filled in a bunch of people that simply
she's vice president right now.
She went along that exact same route, right? She wants to remove.
There is no court packing. Biden could do court packing. Clearly, I don't think most Democrats are in favor of court packing.
Carrying out that plan. J.D. Vance has said that he's going to protect that bulwark, right? He, in opposition to Tim Walz, who has not said that. So when you say, who is the threat to the Constitution? I think the person running with the person who's in favor of packing the court and obliterating the third branch of government, I think
maybe
that person's probably more of a threat to the Constitution.
Said that they would
I got to give you guys. I want to make. Okay, one of the libs have to respond, but only one can because we have a very short period of time on this topic, and there's three people who haven't talked. So who wants to make a point?
Well, I was just going to say, so I think that the person who's a threat to the Constitution is J.D. Vance's running mate, the one who actually wants to terminate the Constitution, which Kamala Harris has never suggested. By the way, Kamala Harris said she was open to court packing 4 years ago. So this is the weakness of Lactoid's argument.
Last time she ran for a primary.
He thinks that it's unconstitutional, or a threat to the Constitution is something which is constitutional, which she said she was open to 4 years ago. Meanwhile, 2 years ago, Trump explicitly said he'd like to terminate the Constitution to unlawfully return him to power. Lactoid doesn't give a fuck about that. It's all about what Kamala Harris might, if then else, do based on something she said 4 years ago, which is perfectly constitutional and has been done multiple times, including by the founding fathers.
True.
And by the way, Eastman,
I never understand obliterate the Constitution part of court packing because we've done it before. We've had
Act, and he would be stopped by the Supreme Court, which means there is less legal predicate for what John Eastman wanted to do than anything that Kamala Harris
you're mistaken. Hold on.
Okay, you can believe 10 seconds, but we have to move on, okay?
Yeah, you're mistaken. You can think that you're legally correct and still predict that a finding might be made against you. Those two are not antithetical to one another. Now, I think it's funny how you brought it back to Trump when we're talking about J.D. Vance versus Tim Walz, which I was trying to stay on topic for.
You mentioned...
It's been more than 10 seconds now.
Oh, my God.
Well, 17 seconds just went by. Now 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26... 27, 28. That was the longest 10 seconds I've ever seen. Okay, look, wait. Stop. Okay, you all know, you're all civilized. Well, stop. You're all civilized people, and you all know at the end you get 2 minutes uninterrupted. If you're thinking they're lying, then just call them a liar at the end. I'm sure you can all act like adults for another 5 seconds. We got a few people to go through so we can wrap this up. Also, if people want to ask questions to any of the participants, we are taking them. If you donate at the website, DylanBurns.tv, we got to grip a little bit here, and you ask a question, and it's not like, here's a slur and a half, then we might actually read it. And we might pose it to the guests. So DylanBurns.tv, that's the website. You donate, and all of the funds go towards freelance war journalism in Ukraine. And we appreciate that here at Dylan Burns TV. Now we're going to throw it over to Cam Higby, who's been waiting extremely patiently.
Yeah, Pisco should take notes. What I was going to say earlier when I raised my hand initially was just that I don't think, being the very honest and good faith person that I am, I don't think that we should say that just because Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris that means that she's a war hawk or anything like that. I think that Dick endorsed Kamala Harris because his daughter has personal beef with Donald Trump, and it's nothing more than that.
Personal beef?
Kamala Harris aligns
That's an interesting way to describe it.
I think it's all personal.
What's that personal beef about?
In addition to that, Pisco, I think it's hilarious how you're jumping all over RC trying to get him to prove a negative. You're like, well, prove to me that JD's business dealings are actually a good thing and not a bad thing. The burden of proof's on you, bro. If you're saying that his business dealings are shady or bad or whatever, he's a war hawk for Israel, blah, 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 whatever, that's on you, bro. You got to prove that, not RC. That's not on him.
Pretty sure all their messaging has been pretty hawkish in Israel, but all right.
You said that Trump had an abysmal abysmal first term. I think that Trump had a great first term. He doubled child tax credit from $1,000 to $2,000. He passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, caused middle classers to receive massive tax breaks, 16 to 26% for people making 15 to 50,000,
less than rich people, but okay.
15%, among lots of other things. You know, the Save Our Seas Act, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, the VA Accountability Act, et cetera, et cetera. You said that you don't know that if he even helped craft the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act legislation. Who the hell cares? You don't have evidence that Joe Biden or Kamala Harris helped craft any of the legislation.
Oh, no, this one, Save Our Seas Act.
None of us know that information, so we just assume that the administration did it.
Wait, what do you mean?
As a whole, yeah, Hutch. So I wasn't finished. You get
Okay, all right.
Down. Respond after. Tariffs bad. I heard that coming from Hutch as well. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris both support tariffs.
Oh my God, I knew he was going to say it. Oh my God.
New tariffs. Kamala Harris, you said Kamala Harris was open to court packing years ago. Yeah, and I think that was kind of an admission.
I wonder what the difference could be between targeted tariffs and a few goods, which, to be clear, I think some of those tariffs are bad,
if it's anything like her
versus universal tariffs and everything. And they also do, like,
knew the Supreme Court would intervene. That's true. He did know the Supreme Court
I know.
And in fact, he wanted the Supreme Court to intervene because he believed that he would win the legal battle. And
no, he did. Grace Jacobs testified that he thought he would lose 9-0.
I got the court packing statement, by the way, just to be clear.
What? You said that.
Good. It's based. It's based. I support it.
Could Lactoid repeat that, because I didn't hear.
She's never retracted the court packing statement.
Okay, so I think Hutch wanted to quickly respond. We're gonna wrap it up. So only I know
shut him down there.
But we're only gonna allow like one response because everybody's gonna have to talk during the outro anyway. Hutch, you wanted to respond to that?
Well, sure. I mean, I think it's cute to take a principled stance against court packing when you guys stole a Supreme Court seat. If the roles were reversed,
so true, dude.
The Republicans would be talking about packing the courts.
I don't know. It's kind of what they did. You said probably unconstitutional.
You said that there's no evidence that Biden directly negotiated in legislation. I don't know what you're talking about there. He was obviously directly involved with the immigration negotiation. Langford is on the record saying as much. Sinema's on the record saying as much. He was directly involved in crafting legislation that ended up being the ARP. That ended up being an inter-party fight about like what goes in, what goes out. He was deeply involved in Build Back Better, which got split into two different bills. Manchin talked about negotiating. So I don't know what you're talking about there. This idea that that Donald Trump was effective legislatively, I just find laughable. When you look at the Biden administration, especially what he was able to do with a 50-50 Senate, as opposed to Donald Trump, who had much more comfortable majorities to work with in both the House and the Senate, I would stack Biden's ability to actually get legislation done against Trump's any day of the week.
It's no secret that Republicans have dissident.
Would it be possible that you could wait till the outro? Because again, we're late. Thank you very much. We have Kevin and Econboy as the two people on the list left before outro. So, either of you have anything left to say?
Yeah. I had a couple notes here. I just wanted to go through with regards to the conversation that we've been having here. So, there was a question. I think it's an important question. I think it's really kind of what is at the issue here is JD Vance genuine in his political and economic evolution from being
we're not gonna have time to discuss it.
Guy with Peter Thiel to a populist with Donald Trump? And that's the question that's at issue. And I think we can kind of just start to answer it by looking at what is he calling for in this cycle. What he's called for so far is the reindustrialization of the Rust Belt. And with Trump, they proposed flat across the board tariffs. To me, that strikes me as that he has distanced himself from his VC background. I disagree with RC there on his VC background as being advantageous. I disagree with...
I'm pretty sure tariffs have only been found to have, or at least the Trump tariffs on steel have been found to have a lot negative effects on American manufacturing. Never seen any good results to American manufacturing from the Trump-era steel tariffs and aluminum tariffs.
Buy it or not, at least his rhetoric tends towards a shift. And I would say as well, on the point about the post office that was brought up too, if you guys on the right here had it your way, a lot of your compatriots, especially a lot of your working class compatriots that live outside of the big cities, which I thought you guys don't really like big cities too much.
I'm glad we're defending the post office here. Oh, look, another kickbot.
Get posts. The trads in the countryside wouldn't be able to get posts because it wouldn't be profitable. So, like, if you want to stand up for the trads, you've got to have some socialist.
Why are there so many bots on Kick?
Should we do that with defense? You only get covered if you can pay for the U.S. Air Force your portion of the subscription as well. I would say, I'm going to wrap it up here. Why do we care what's good for business over what's good for workers? That's a big one. And I would say to Cam as well, I do disagree a little bit. Not that you're wrong about Cheney. I think you're right. There's a good case to make that his specific endorsement might have been personal. But I would argue that on the system level, it's not personal. That all these guys, Cheney's cohorts, not just him, they've all come around and endorsed Harris. I think that speaks to a broader realignment of the political system where the Democrats are the party of essentially the military-industrial complex and the Republicans are the party of protectionism. That's a big shift. That's a big shift. So that's kind of what I got to say there. I just think, if you're going to be
Jesus, what the hell is my family doing? They're being so loud upstairs.
Really, you want to cut the post office? That's goofy, man. So
okay, we're going to throw it over now to Econboy because
clearly cutting the post office is the based populist position now, I guess.
Just real quickly, I mean, on the reindustrialization of America, Biden's done much more to do that than Trump ever did. There's many more people working in manufacturing today than there ever was under Trump.
True.
He's shaking his head, but he's disagreeing with the absolute cast iron facts of things.
It's correct.
But we're talking about
contribution isn't there.
If I could, we don't have much time, guys. I've got to finish my point here, as Dylan said. But there's more people working in manufacturing.
Pretty sure the next topic is the economy.
Trump administration, as there is now under the Biden administration, manufacturing spending, like construction of new factories, that's literally at a record high. I think Trump averaged about
reindustrialization is still a bad thing.
It's literally $250
I think it's fine for semiconductors. It's fine for semiconductors and fine for drones.
Those were both
because those are essential for like military.
Than Trump did. So I mean,
those are probably the good things to do it on. We haven't done anything with drones, but we have done stuff in semiconductors.
Really address that fundamental point that I keep making. Tim Walz has an actual record of running a government. Who did he invest in? He invested in people with infrastructure. He invested in children. He invested in education. These are all things that return a lot more tax money to the government than things like tariffs, right? Those are smart policies. Those invest in the American people. That's what Biden's done. That's what I imagine Kamala and Tim will do if they actually end up winning this election.
Okay, the next topic is the economy, so I think we're going to have an extensive conversation about tariffs, I expect. So let's wrap up this with ending statements. If there's anything you want to respond to, if there's anything you want to say on this, we're not going to talk about it next topic. Citing stuff from the last conversation, unless you can somehow twist it into legitimately being important. We don't want to trudge that out. We want to move on. So this is the last time to say anything. If you start bringing up like, hey, I want to say something from last thing, and the next thing, I'll shut you down. So get it out now. We have 2 minutes for everybody. That's the rule. But do keep in mind that we are running late, so try to be quick about it. We're going to start with, we'll start with Pisco.
Yeah, thanks. I
think
that this wasn't even...
Sorry, I was paid to do that.
Yeah, of course. So I think that it's not even a close call on this. The vice president, one of their key responsibilities is transfer power, and you don't even hear any good.
I don't even have any
about why it would ever make sense not to certify this election. Again, I was kind of engaged in the hypothetical, assuming it was legal because Cam Higby clearly isn't equipped to have a legal conversation. But to LactoidTV's point, it actually matters a lot to me that one is illegal and what you're proposing with respect to the court packing isn't illegal. That is a distinction that matters to me still. To the law, the Constitution, that stuff 100% matters. And so, yeah, and I think I don't even think LactoidTV would argue vigorously. And I think he would actually disagree with Eastman's theory that what he was proposing was legal. On everything else, like policy-wise that we discussed, I don't know why, even assuming Kevin Cassidy's position that you're seeing a genuine shift from JD Vance from the kind of VC days to now. One, I don't know why we would assume that. I mean, as far as I understood, he's still asking for money from Peter Thiel. Like as recently as a month ago, he's still getting all the Trump.
Something that is arguably good, but Democrats keeping some Trump tariffs is pretty awful. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like I've said before, tariffs are probably the worst thing about Biden, honestly. The U.S. does not need reindustrialization, true. We need more financialization, unironically.
His complete outlook on political philosophy and I guess industrialization and domestic production in 2 years, where we have Kamala Harris. Okay, you have some change in position with respect to like fracking and stuff like that, but it's nothing like the kind of change in outlook that you're describing between JD Vance's VC days and what he is now. It's much more substantial, much more significant, and I don't think that the evidence is there to support it. Yeah, he talks a good talk, but he's still going to money within the same places, and he still has the same exact friends.
Okay, I'm now going to throw it over to RC.
Yeah, to kind of just spin off what he had said. yeah, he could have the same friends. You still haven't pointed out anything wrong with his friends. So, and this criticism that Tim Walz has more political experience than JD Vance, and the question that I'm asking is then centrally, what is different between political experience and private sector experience when it comes to communication, negotiation, and competition? All of that is very applicable to the government. So I don't understand how you're going to say, well, this
I don't
guy
even
doesn't
like
have political experience, as though that
those
really
skills are
matters,
required in
because he has
every
private
job,
sector
dude.
experience.
Obviously, they're required more if you're
I'll
a
just leave it
fucking
at that.
corporate leader of a corporation or whatever. But like,
over to Kevin Kastler.
Yeah,
some amount of.
So I'll check
obviously, like any job is gonna have some skills that are gonna be applicable to government.
Conversation. Let's be real. There's more than one issue. The legalese stuff that some of the folks here were fighting over. It's not relevant to 78% of American workers that are living paycheck to paycheck. What matters.
Oh my god! Now we get the meme stat again. I'm glad he runs with the 78% number. Usually, people are ashamed of that number because it's obviously way too high.
But here's the problem with the whole Trump thing, right? Sometimes they do the wild card stuff, and sometimes they shock everybody, and they do something that's like pretty amazing. And then most of the time, they toe the line of Capitol and Wall Street and whatnot. The Democrats, in contrast, yeah, they tend to be more for orienting spending around, social services, that sort of stuff.
So based.
But then you look at their record on, say, the border and this mass importation of cheap labor, which undermines workers. Their wages
also based does not undermine workers. All the data says so. Well, only undermines
the workers.
high school dropouts.
Himself. He
what do you mean tariffs and bans and maybe Chinese EVs? A bunch of European countries want that. I don't know.
He did bring in a lot of cheap labor. So it's a mixed bag.
I don't have an issue. I don't know what the big issue with Chinese EVs is, or I don't know. I don't know why it matters if we get EVs from China.
Level of material reality, and on that, it really comes down to who do you trust? Do you trust Vance in his evolution, and do you trust Harris when she's out there talking about how she's going to make housing more affordable for you? Or do you trust her when she's bragging to donors about how Dick Cheney and other neocon support her? That's the question that's up for debate. And, that's up for you to decide.
I mean, I don't know.
And follow me.
I mean, like, we subsidize, like, food.
Lactoid?
And that goes into international markets and undercuts people.
I think I probably disagree with Kevin on most things, despite the fact that he's my ally in this discussion. But I'm going to disagree with him when he says that, well, the legal stuff, the constitutional stuff, that doesn't matter. I think it does matter. And I think that there's something particularly disgusting occurring, and has been occurring for a long time now, when Democrats are painting their candidates as like these staunch defenders of the Constitution, and these Republicans as these evil revolutionary bunch that are trying to overthrow it. And you thought here today, despite the fact this was a conversation about JD Vance's merits, we had a Trump tweet brought up that, by the way, I've already condemned. So when you say that, I don't give a fuck, that's
wow, he condemned the tweet. But you're still voting for the candidate. I think that when we're talking about threat to the Constitution, it's hilarious to me when people say, "Hey, subsidize it." Yeah, I mean, I'm almost always going to be more in favor of subsidies than I am tariffs. Like
a constitutional amendment to prevent court packing because this is a critical branch for our institutions in our republic. And then he's the threat to democracy, and he's the threat to the republic, and he's the threat to the Constitution. And then you have the guy saying, "Well, First Amendment doesn't cover hate speech. He's supposedly this bulwark against tyranny and evil." I think it's absolutely absurd. I think the fact that multiple people on this panel have endorsed court packing, which would, I think, have a very real risk of obliterating a republic, is concerning. I think that is more disqualifying than anything J.D. Vance has said on the 2020 election. And overall, again, going through just all my points, I think J.D. Vance really surprised people at the debate. I think people were just writing him off, making lies about him fucking the couch or whatever. And then he came back and he's like, no, actually, he's principled. He's a supporter of the Constitution. Yeah, he's actually
non-lies conservatives read.
And Democrats,
dude, 50% of Republicans are fucking hurricane truthers now, dude. Really, we care about the couch still.
He's got to be the truth guy because of the narrative that Democrats have built over time. It's disgusting.
Do any Democrats even seriously believe the couch thing? Like Republicans seriously believe
disagrees with Kamala Harris.
Hurricanes are controlled by the Jews?
We can actually have a conversation about who's better, Tim Walz or J.D. Vance. But until that time happens, J.D. Vance is obviously better.
Pondering?
Man, I don't know where to begin. So the reason the Trump tweet was brought up was because Lactoid brought up Kamala Harris's position from 4 years ago where she said she was open to court packing. Tim Walz, to my knowledge, has not said he's pro-court packing, so there's a relationship Lactoid is trying to establish vis-a-vis Kamala Harris's position. By that point, Trump is fair game, and you will always lose on the Trump point because court packing is #1 constitutional, was exercised by the founding fathers themselves. And what Donald Trump is proposing was the termination of a constitution to restore him to a second unlawful term. Trump is objectively far worse in all ways. The only reason that you would care more about potentially court packing, which again is not Walz, it's the person that Walz is backing might be open to it, is because you care more about preserving a right-wing supermajority on the Supreme Court than actually preserving the Constitution itself. That's really what Lactoid is upset about. In terms of lying, J.D. Vance has been caught in verifiable lies time and time again, going from obviously the 2020 election situation. He knows that Donald Trump lost the election. He won't concede to it because it's politically inconvenient. He's lied about migrants in Springfield, Ohio,
he said,
and on and on.
like the day after the debate, he was like at an airport and a reporter asked him and he flat out said no. He's clearly willing to answer it sometimes, just like not when it's highly publicized, I guess.
Executive and legislative experience that J.D. Vance doesn't. J.D. Vance has been in Congress for 2 years.
I know,
it's
wild.
Nothing done. He wouldn't even vote for the enhanced child tax credit he claims to support because he cares more about politics than he does about policy. He
and Kamala wants to expand the child tax credit way more than Trump does, but all right.
The Constitution demands that a vice president preside over the certification of the Electoral College. J.D. Vance is the only one of the two candidates who has called into question whether or not he would faithfully do so. Again, he is morally and ethically and constitutionally inferior in all ways, objectively so, as is Donald Trump. You lose.
Hutch.
Based.
Yeah, I mean, look, as far as court packing goes, the Republicans have won.
Oh, Cam Higby is a cat, though. So
in the last
I'm
30 years,
reconsidering now.
6 Republicans sitting on the Supreme Court. This is an obviously untenable situation. I maintain that if the roles were reversed, the Republicans would be talking about packing the courts. As far as J.D. Vance is concerned, it's one thing to evolve in your opinions. That does happen. Obviously, politicians of every stripe will flip-flop on a number of issues. It's another thing entirely to refer to Donald Trump in private as America's
the topic was econ. The next topic is econ. They're doing closing statements on J.D. Vance versus Tim Walz right now.
At, like the region of where Vance comes from, that's a pretty profound thing to call someone. To go from that to being that person's VP in the course of however many years we are, 8 years, that is pretty remarkable to me. I think Walz is a little rough around the edges sometimes when it comes to like the way that he composes himself, and I obviously disagree with him on hate speech and First Amendment. But if we're talking about like concerns with the Constitution, again, I don't think there's any comparison between someone like Walz, who is just clearly wrong about hate speech, and someone like Vance, who's backing someone like Trump, who has open contempt for the Constitution, has proposed literally terminating the Constitution. I don't even understand how these things are in the same conversation. So for these reasons, I think Vance is just completely disqualified, and I would never in a million years consider letting him anywhere near power.
Would you prefer the Shapiro VP pick? It's hard to know just because I don't know what would have come out about Shapiro if he was chosen as VP. Like no one knew about the Tim Walz China stuff until he was VP, right? So it's hard to know.
That's what I needed to hear. Okay,
I think Shapiro would have done better in the debate, but
yeah, I mean, I think number one, we didn't talk much about their actual policy differences.
I don't know. I'd say probably not
important. But if we
just because I feel like the Tim Walz stuff isn't that bad,
I think that it's important to establish a pretty clear difference, right? I mean, Tim Walz again. Investing in children, investing in infrastructure, investing in clean energy, investing in public education. These are good things. These are good government.
Like Econoboy is able to say all that about Tim Walz. I don't know what
into the system.
Can be said about Shapiro.
Republicans tend to cut child education. That's not really good for the economy long term. It's certainly not good for children in the short or the long term. And so I think that progressive policy voice will be relatively positive. The one caveat to that is I know that J.D. Vance talked about
another kickbot. Let's go.
Let's talk about what Trump actually did when he was in office. He doubled the child tax credit from $1,000 to $2,000. He increased the refundability to $1,400. So the most that you could get from the child tax credit was $1,400. Biden comes in, increases that to $3,600, right? And so that's a substantial higher increase. That's what Kamala's actually proposing, plus a $6,000 credit for people who have newborn children.
What's up, Miss Olivia? Are you not a bot? Are you not someone promoting the graphic design?
Administration is actually proposing. That's not
She's
including
definitely someone promoting your graphic design. I don't trust her.
Universal tariffs, to be clear. But it's also important to point out the reason why we didn't get to talk about policy so much is because it is important that we talk about the candidates' positions on democracy and their position within the democratic experiment. known as the American democracy. The reason why these debates matter, the reason why it's interesting to talk about our different political opinions is because we feel like they're actionable.
Sorry, I'm being rude.
When I go out and I vote for JD Vance / Donald Trump or Kamala Harris / Tim Walz, my assumption, and I think the ordinary assumption of the American people, is I'm voting for this person. If a plurality of people in my state vote for this person, that is who our electoral votes will go to. That's a legitimate democratic process. That's the ordinary understanding. When you start to challenge that ordinary understanding of democratic experiments, that's when you start to democratically backslide. That's really bad. The fact that JD Vance can't really succinctly answer that question other than to say
Twitter
that he would
profile?
Be a part of undermining the American democratic experiment, that is very, very bad. That's the reason why that issue is a priority to the people on this panel, although certainly we do not concede the policy merits between the two. Tim Walz is much better.
Now over to Cam Higby.
Yeah, so I'd like to start by saying I hope all you on the left are running scared after my cat absolutely bodied you. There was some stuff on the Chips and Science
I did mention
Act.
that.
I'll save that for the next discussion, assuming we get an opening, I think, right, Dylan? Same thing with jobs. So Pisco said that there was no evidence that, JD Vance has changed since he's been friends with Peter Thiel, but also argued that he flipped substantially more than Kamala Harris, astronomically. So those two views don't really seem to coincide.
There's no evidence that he changed on the
each other directly.
Populism thing, but okay.
I'd like to comment on the Democrat rebranding. I think it's very interesting. You're all here wearing camouflage hats, which I think is absolutely hilarious. Nobody would have associated camouflage hats with Democrats a couple years ago. I agree with Kevin Castley on the Postal Service. I think that there should be some structures of government that are socialized, that are provided to everybody. I think the Postal Service is one of those. Defense is obviously another one of those. I think that things that like private sector things should not be run like the Postal Service, for the exact reason that the Postal Service is just meant to provide things, not in an efficient manner. Private postal companies obviously do a much better job, and this is one of Ludwig von Mises' primary arguments against the Leninist system, because Lenin structured his entire government after the Postal Service, which has all the deficits covered by the government. Court packing was done by the founding fathers. But it's true. Court packing was done by the founding fathers.
The post office
because they wanted more people on the court who
was supposed to be.
It was because
I don't know how long it's been in deficit, but I thought they reformed it so it doesn't really take government money anymore, like in the 70s.
A deadlock. 3 people on each side.
Then too, I don't even think it's true that
there could be no deadlock. There's always
private companies do it better. Usually the post office is the most convenient for me when I ship things in anecdotally, and I'm pretty sure it's at least cheaper.
Incoherently stupid thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It is the president's job to appoint people to the Supreme
Court. I'm aware,
Olivia.
People
either retire or die on the Supreme Court. Somebody even said he stole 2 seats, which I assume would, anyway. So, let's see what else was said. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'll save the rest of the economy stuff for my opening in the next one.
Just on the 2-minute mark. Perfect ending.
Perfect.
Okay,
it was like 1970
something. First topic done. I hope you are all enjoying your time here. It gets a little feisty, but it stayed largely within the reins of polite-ish discussion, and I appreciate that. One last donation we got $20 from McLean, which says, would any of the pro-Vance speakers agree to a long 1v1 debate against any of the Lib and Learn team, which I believe is a reference to the liberals on this show, like Pisco and the rest.
LactoidTV and Econoboi.
All of you.
Well, then Lactoid says yes, and he already did it. So Lactoid's way ahead of that donor. Thank you for the $20. I appreciate it.
Dylan, do my open last. I'm going to go to the bathroom.
Okay, no worries. Okay.
Lactoid, have you squared off with Hutch?
No, I tried. We tried. But...
Haven't we been on a panel before?
That's the missing one.
I think that we were on the Her Report panel, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Sounds right.
Yeah, that's right.
There's only one panel, and that's the Hippy Dippy panel. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next topic we're going to get into is the fun and wacky world of economics. So, economics, when polled, the economy is a big issue for voters. Immigration, the economy, democracy, these seems to be the top 3 issues. And so we're going to talk about the economy. And the question is simple. Which economic approach, the Biden-Harris economy or the Trump-Pence economy, provides a better foundation for a future Harris or Trump
it's such an obvious answer. It's not even close. Not even close.
Let's go with, he has it in the name. So, Econoboy.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I certainly think that the Biden-Harris approach, although not optimal, look, I'm a very progressive person. If I had the reins of the economy, we would do significantly more progressive economic measures than the Kamala or Biden administration. But they've taken a good first step. You know, call it a down payment if you want. But the IRA, the Chips and Manufacturing and Sciences Act, or whatever the long sort of extended name is, the CHIPS Act as people call it, that's all really, really good, smart industrial policy.
Title Trump's winning economy issues. We need more econ education. Yes. Investing in children, send all Republicans to economics re-education camps,
Of course,
please.
we've seen the experiment, right?
And indoctrinate them into Keynesianism.
Enacted temporarily, unironically, they get passed under the Democratic caucus currently. We saw childhood poverty basically get cut in half. Guess what?
True.
When you give people money that don't have enough money, they're not as impoverished as they used to be. And every child that grows up in poverty is a child that's less likely to live up to their full potential, less likely to become a scientist,
less likely to be a productive taxpayer,
less likely to become an engineer, someone that really expands the productive capacity of our economy. Kamala's also proposed expanding the EITC, which is also something that Biden did as a part of his recovery, but also making that permanent. And again, that's a big anti-poverty measure as well. So look, if you care about people not living in poverty, you care about investing in good manufacturing, middle-class growing jobs that don't require a huge amount of education, a lot of people can get these jobs right off the street, then certainly it sounds like you would favor a Biden and Kamala approach, not the approach of Donald Trump. He's doubled down on all of his bad economic policies from his first term, and he hasn't seemed to keep a lot of the good ones. So I would say recommend Kamala and Biden on this issue.
Okay, that was 1:30. We're now going to throw it over to Lectoid.
Yeah, I think that when we're talking about what is good in an economy, I think there's it's two separate questions, right? Because there's the first question, which is what makes the most sense, what's the most efficient in terms of just if you're trying to do something, what accomplishes what you're trying to do best. And then the other question is, who is it it's good for who, right? Because the actual goal matters.
What, are tariffs really good for working class people?
Not only a practice of efficacy, but it's also a practice of morality. Because, this is some libertarian shit I'm about to come out with, but when you expropriate people's resources from them, this is stealing from them. You are essentially removing things that they've worked for.
Oh
and
my
this
God.
absolutely has moral implication. Now, if we're looking at both of these candidates here, or I guess we're looking at Trump compared to Biden, I'm not going to lie, I don't particularly like either of them. But I'm going to phrase this in the sense of who is less bad, right? I don't like the economic populism that's coming out of Trump. And I don't like the typical shit that's coming out of Biden. And the proposals from both candidates going forward are also, I have disagreements with them for equal reasons, or for similar reasons. But I think that the Trump-Pence presidency, in terms of the economic outlook, was better. I think that just is better than Biden's, at least. I think that Biden, has a lot of issues. We have incredibly high inflation under Biden. We have Trump being historically very good on regulation. He's very good in terms of not raising taxes and some tax cuts as well.
Which increased the deficit, which he presumably is opposed to, but all right.
Just handouts to people with relatively high income. Mass spending. In terms of his jobs, they were constantly being revised down. Joe Biden's going to claim that he had
the jobs were revised down.
You look at a percentage of the jobs.
It's the most recent jobs numbers revised jobs up, right?
Biden is claiming credit for now are disproportionately going to be part-time as opposed to a full-time compared to the Trump presidency.
I don't know stats backing that up, but
Trump's prior policies plays into some of the good shit
I know
that's going forward.
To be fair, he did say historically, I guess.
The biggest deficit items on his policy are tax cuts and no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, which is all great. We shouldn't be taxing people for going out and doing honest day's work. Lowering taxes for domestic manufacturers.
Okay, we're over 2 minutes, so try to wrap it up.
Yeah, and I guess just to wrap up, Biden sucks on all of that. He's going to raise taxes and shit. And
so based. I love raising taxes on the middle class, and only in the middle class.
Sorry. So basically everything Econoboy said, I wrote his intro and I gave it to him. The other thing I'll just say is that J.D. Vance has no economic record of which to speak. So it's hard for us to really compare. Governor Walz is a mixed bag when it comes to Minnesota. Some good things, some things not so good. The Biden-Harris administration, I would say that especially when you consider the hand that they were dealt, their economic success has been overall staggering. When Donald Trump came into office, of course, he was riding President Obama's coattails. A lot of Republicans and Trump supporters like to pretend that basically the universe was created anew. Donald Trump single-handedly with just a few very tiny orange hands created the U.S. economy. But for the most
part, needs to show him Trump's tax distribution effects and when he lowers tax over the top 5%. Yeah, I know.
Economic trends that were continuing from the Obama administration.
Well, I mean, doesn't it
for the first 3 years? I think the stock market
doesn't it lower them in absolute terms for like everybody? It's just gonna.
So we'll give him that. We can give a president any credit for the stock market.
No, I didn't read it all.
The whole thing collapsed in his 4th year. So, and of course, Trump supporters say you can't hold COVID against Trump, even though obviously, if the shoe was on the other foot, they absolutely would hold COVID against a Democrat. But even by that logic, that means that you should also grade President Biden on a curve, given that he had to deal with the pandemic recovery. So for that and all the other reasons that Econoboy laid out,
I definitely have seen it on Twitter. Maybe I didn't save it.
Economic Foundation.
Hutch.
Yeah, I got to give credit to Republicans on messaging because they have truly convinced a lot of median voters that they're better on the economy, despite the fact that every modern
I definitely have seen this chart. It's probably in graphs I like.
When they took office, and every Republican left the economy in a worse position than it was when they took office. We can look at GDP growth, deficit spending, unemployment, job creation. Any metric you want to look at. You know, and I was
what about inflation, Hutch? Have you considered that one?
And they were talking about how they were frustrated that people that were affected by these disasters weren't getting more money to sort of help them get through the worst of it. They were talking about like homeless veterans. They were talking about how there were Americans that were struggling. And I couldn't help but think that they seem to be making the case for the Democratic Party. I don't see the Republicans proposing a lot of like robust economic policy to directly impact Americans in this country that are struggling. I do want to make a point. Kevin has mentioned a couple times that 75% of the country lives paycheck to paycheck. I just want to get a fact check from Econoboy when we start. I don't believe that's true. I think the median family has
close.
Like $180,000 in wealth.
It's like $192,000
assets. But yeah,
is this a real person or is this a porn bot?
Having this conversation. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and with that, you know what? I'll throw it over to Kevin Castley next.
It's just a graphic design.
Yeah, sure. So for my opener, I've already got this prepared. I'm not going to respond to that. We can talk about that in the main segment. So yeah, so I have a degree in economics that's relevant to this. But
and you're citing the 78% paycheck to paycheck number?
They're a mixed bag. Here's the thing. Freedom cities, which Trump has very sparingly talked about, is like brilliant. So he's one of the only Western leaders to talk about planned cities. Look, it's same in Canada as in the U.S. We're sick of living in old, congested cities with bad infrastructure and high rents. Let's build some new.
You know what? Guess what?
Big housing and big.
Harris wants to build housing,
learn from the
and Biden passed the Infrastructure Act.
I want to say as well, the CHIPS Act that Biden Harris did is good. That is good, absolutely. But here's the thing. So are tariffs. Again, it's a mixed bag. So Trump's tariffs have the potential to gear
Trump's
the American
universal
economy.
Tariffs
On the board, as he said, as Vance has said as well, the 20%.
What econ degree did this guy get?
On the whole,
from where?
They gear the economy towards self-reliance, which is a national.
Do you think he got?
Issue,
do you think he was one of the people scammed by Trump University?
About national security and stuff, yet they're fine with subordinating their economy to multinationals that have no allegiance to their country. Consider Taiwan, where that dependency could actually force a war.
And they gave him a fake degree. Wasn't Trump was sued for that, right? I think he was probably one of the people like in that lawsuit.
Likely be forced into a war if anything happens there, giving you strategic flexibility to not necessarily get into a nuclear war, right? So that's good. America is one of only a few countries that could be fully self-reliant. So is Canada, but we're not
fully self-reliant. We're not even talking about. We're not even talking about like tariffing like specific goods. We're talking about fully self-reliant. Really, dude?
Corporate tax cuts that he did in his term, and Harris rhetoric is populist, but it's undermined by the mass migration that Biden presided over in his term. So at the end of the day, they are a mixed bag of pros and cons. I support labor, and at the end of the day, it's a mixed bag because both parties serve capital instead of workers. So if you're working out there, doesn't matter if that that number is technically true depending on how you bend it. You're getting screwed over bigly, basically, right now. So thank you.
So true, dude. Didn't consider that one.
Throwing it now over to, I'll throw it over to RC.
I'll try to keep it short and concise. I think that the Trump administration will incentivize business owners. They already have in 4 years, and they will.
I mean, Harris has a lot of small business stuff.
It's necessary for our country the lifeblood of our country, which are small businesses.
None of them criticized unrealized gains yet.
Business owners to open up, to incentivize the entrepreneurs to open up and to innovate in the United States. When you have companies that like Walmart, Apple, Amazon, that employ millions of jobs, employ millions of Americans in the United States, we want to incentivize these people. We don't want the smartest and the brightest.
Oh, he might be leading up to the unrealized gains.
Their company in a foreign market. We don't want the Elon Musk
he's talking about Tariffs.
leave the state of California and go to Texas. We see what Democrat-run governors do.
What do you mean by unrealized gains thing? I don't think it's like that negative. I don't support it, but like I just don't think it's like
Kamala
that
Harris
big of a deal.
Quoted claiming that
especially it's probably going to be like the whatever deferral charge thing, right? So like that like
what
could even
can you say to de-incentivize business owners, potential business
it's even
owners,
less big of a deal if it's
in the United
if it's
States.
that.
Throwing it now over to Pisco.
Yeah, I think one of the big problems you have with the Republicans or the right-wingers or the pro-Trumpers on this panel is a little thing called post hoc ergo propter hoc. Just because something happens close in time to something else doesn't mean that it happens because of that. And as was explained by Josiah earlier, the people who are citing the cost of living crisis that occurred under Joe Biden, just like Kevin cited the immigration crisis that has persisted under Joe Biden, doesn't mean that it happened because of any concrete Joe Biden policies. We know that the economy was, or the cost of living crisis is a global problem that was affected primarily by, or started primarily by COVID, the virus, and the restrictions that were made sort of as a result of COVID. And in response to that crisis, the Biden-Harris administration has performed exceptionally. We've had a soft landing. We have growth, very good growth. We have great unemployment numbers. Real wages are finally going up. We've had unprecedented.
They've been going up. They've been going up for a step. Well, I shouldn't say real wage. Wages have been outpacing inflation for 17 months straight now. And inflation was higher than real wages for a little bit, so it takes a bit of time for wages to outpace inflation to catch up.
And Harris have solutions for.
But
example,
yeah,
with respect to the cost,
wages have been outpacing inflation for 17 months.
Kamala Harris has a plan with a billion homes.
Thank you.
A supply issue. If you're Kevin Castle and you trust Donald Trump to build futuristic planned cities, don't count on it. This guy cannot fulfill his promises. He cannot follow through on his.
I don't even think it's like better housing policy than Harris's is. So
I think it's a lot more doable, and I have a lot more trust in her vision as opposed to Donald Trump's. And then finally, on the issue of immigration, that's another sort of discrete area where the administration has proposed a solution, the bipartisan Immigration Act, which would have vastly increased the number of border agents, which you need to resolve a lot of these cases and to push back some of the tide of illegal immigration. Which
they should debate the economics of immigration. I bet.
And then finally,
all the older conservatives are just upset about the mass importation of military age men because they don't understand the economics behind it.
Tax cuts for billionaires. And it can't be the case that we think that furtherance of that policies or business as usual with the MAGA Republicans is going to be in the best interest of real Americans and working class people.
Okay, now we're going to throw it over to Cam Higby to end our opening statements.
Perfect. I'll set the stage pretty hard here. So I'll address some of these things in reverse order. So the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act did not primarily provide tax cuts for billionaires. Billionaires, or people making over $1 million in general, received a tax cut of less than 4%, where people making $15,000 to $50,000 received a tax cut of 16 to 26%.
I don't know what he's citing for that.
$50,000 to $100,000 received a tax cut on average of 16%.
Because I've seen multiple independent sources say the opposite.
Kamala Harris,
I don't know.
has a plan to build homes, and you pretty much summed it up perfectly because that's all she says. I'm going to build homes. She didn't say anything else. Her policy proposal on this on her website is
do I need to pull up the list again?
The list with absolutely no more substantiation other than I'm going to reduce
of everything
house
Biden Harris
by
has done.
$25,000 in a grant to help you buy your first home, which
for
is
YIMBYism.
Not a policy proposal at all. Actually, it's just I'm going to give you some money. It's a grant. It doesn't reduce the prices of homes. It just helps mitigate the current high prices. So not a policy proposal. You said that just because it happens close in time doesn't mean it was their fault. I find that especially ironic because you prescribed that to all my compatriots here on the panel. But despite that fact, your friends here continue to say that Trump left the economy in a worse place than he entered office. Well, why was that? It wasn't because of his policies. We saw that if the pandemic never happened, Trump would have left the economy in the best place it had ever been.
I don't think they were blaming it.
It was the pandemic that caused the leaving of the economy in the worst place that it had ever been, not Trump's actual actions.
True,
so
but then you don't apply that.
Okay.
It was a point of hypocrisy against you because you don't apply that same logic to Biden when he's dealing with the effects of COVID.
Slavery and child slavery or labor that's
I guess we're doing this with tariffs now.
In foreign countries, tariffs works to eliminate that. It de-incentivizes the use of foreign labor, especially in places where they are paid almost nothing, and brings it back home where we're legally obligated to pay people wages that are acceptable. On top of that, it eliminates the problem of us being completely dependent on countries that are either our literal enemies or countries that will soon be absorbed by our enemies, i.e. Taiwan. Trump let
little bit of doomerism there. Soon be absorbed.
You said that Trump.
We've given up already.
Has more manufacturing jobs than Trump ever did. That's true. There are more manufacturing jobs now than there was under Trump, but the proportional increase is like nothing compared to what Trump did. Trump in his first 2 years had over 400,000 manufacturing jobs added to the economy. Trump in Biden's entire term have 175,000. The rest were all returning jobs. The sharpest increase in returning jobs is while Trump was still in office.
Okay, and with that, we have...
I don't know. I'd have to know what he's setting. Proportional.
Anybody that wants to start us off? Kevin grabbed it first, so Kevin gets it.
Yeah, I know. I was listening to Pisco while I was away, and he had said that, well, you know, you put a lot of trust into Trump about the freedom cities, but what if he doesn't do it? I want to be clear right here, just on the record. There's like a 98% chance he doesn't even get.
Foreign workers don't make enough money compared to U.S. standards to just eliminate their jobs. I know, it's wild. Like, they're probably never going to, like, the U.S. had child labor for a while till we could afford to get rid of it. It's probably the same thing for other countries, right?
$800 extra a month more than we were a few years ago.
Total manufacturing. This is total.
That's you know, does nothing. That's just cushion it basically with our cash. And so no, I don't trust that he's going to do it. It's just he's one of the only people I've even seen talking about it. That's to clarify
how many people
my position.
I just want to ask, how many people on this panel even knew that this was a policy going into this debate?
Probably nobody.
I mean, we're all very attuned people. We're all very
the freedom cities.
Yeah, freedom cities.
Yeah, I've heard about that. And the federal land.
Are we talking about freedom cities or economic opportunity zones?
No. We're talking about specifically the cities that.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
I've heard the freedom cities mentioned like twice. I don't even
know about the policy, but I'm not convinced that the rhetoric on freedom cities has reached critical mass such that we can talk about any. You know, we were talking about like the lack of specifics on the building of homes. How many people are being affected by this rhetoric? How much commitment is there on the MAGA base for him to follow through?
Pisco, I agree with you, but he is.
Oh, he also mentioned
talked about it. Now he hasn't done it as much as I would like, not anywhere near. But the question is, if he started talking about it, your
of
criticism
income
is, well,
by
people don't know about it. That's not really a valid criticism because talking about it changes that. It gets people to talk about it. Right?
I don't know what on earth he's citing for this.
Of real people. I think that
building new cities will.
I think that proposing solutions that have no chance of success is not going to help Americans. I know
that's not true. That's not true. They've built hundreds in China, and it's been working, and people have better housing now.
I'm talking about this country and what I know about this country.
Why can't people have nice things, Pisco?
Why
can't people have nice things here? Pisco.
In this country, as you are, right? You said 90.
Are you a landlord, Pisco? Pisco, are you a landlord? You're not a landlord.
It's not relevant. I'm not a landlord.
No, but it is relevant because landlords oppose the construction of new cities.
It's completely irrelevant about whether I am a landlord or not. I'm a tenant. I am not a landlord, but even if I was,
so then it's in your financial interest to have more housing stock available.
So I agree that more housing stock is important. That's why I support, and I hope that you would too. Do you or do you not support Kamala Harris's proposal to spend money on 3 million new homes? Would you support that?
Yeah, I've looked into it. I think it's good. The problem is, but the problem is, I also agree with Cam. I don't think she's going to do it, and I agree with you. I don't think Trump's going to do it. That's the problem. Is that both of these guys at the end of the day serve capital, not labor. So
in this country, I'm sorry.
Why do they get this guy, man?
I think you're going to have a problem here with some of the libs. In this country, the power of capital is endemic into all of our issues, right? It's like
liberalism is a cancer. Of course I have a problem.
You're not going to get rid of it in the next 20, 30 years, and your attempts to try.
You're going to lose in China. You're going to lose in China.
I have no clue what Cam is citing for his numbers. It'd be really useful if he just said his source.
I'm telling you, it's not going to be successful, and every single proposal that you're going to have is going to
maybe
require a
private-public
partnership. If not, it's not going to get out the door. I know this country. I know it's going to work, and what you're asking for is pie in the sky, and it won't work.
No, but it's not pie in the sky. It's been done before. It's been done in China, and yeah, it was a public-private partnership. The difference there is that the government is the primary shareholder in about 98% of their companies.
So they discontinued in 20.
I don't think Trump is gonna build many new American cities. Like, this seems kind of
Cam Higby argued. That doesn't surprise me. He argued for nuking North Korea preemptively. Dude, why is it lagging? Sorry, guys, I don't know why it's doing that.
About it, at least he's talking about it, right?
Well, sure, Trump talks about a lot of dumb shit, right? I mean, I don't know how seriously we can take
what on earth
any one policy that Trump actually proposes, right? But if we compare what they've actually proposed, it seems like the actual welfare-inducing things, like, you agreed that Biden was an extremely pro-labor candidate. Obviously, that's the case.
I don't know why it's so low.
Co-sponsors things.
Mass migration, but yes.
He did not cause. Wait, Kevin, did he cause that? How did he cause it? If he did,
Econoboy doesn't want to debate it. Damn.
By keeping the borders open, essentially.
Wait, when you say keeping the border open, you're aware that he is deporting record numbers of individuals. When you say keeping the border
basically
open,
flat since 2009.
What I mean is by essentially continuing the status quo, which also Trump did too. He continued the status quo of allowing the importation of cheap labor.
What do you mean allowing?
Undercut wages and drive up rents.
He's deporting record numbers of people because there's record numbers of encounters. He's also allowing record numbers of people to just be released into the country. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I'm going to give you a little primer about what it is I'm talking about. So in this country, if you cross the border and are in America, right, you've not gone through entry and inspection and admission, you are considered an applicant for admission if you're stopped any place. In this country, the law gives you procedures before they can deport you, even expedited procedures. And so under the law in this country, we are not allowed to summarily throw you out. We have a very long fucking border. So when you say that
we release people and they're not accountable to appear for the court dates,
I couldn't hear.
Wait, oh my God, they're all speaking over each other now.
I can't hear anything that anyone's saying. It's all. Sorry, you were all three talking at the same time. So this is the order I'm going to do it, okay? Because Pisco just talked. So we're going to go Cam, because Cam rose his hand, and I want to make sure he gets to talk. Then we'll have Kevin add anything he wants to add. Then we'll bring it back to Pisco to respond before moving to the rest of the room. LacTorre, and I'm writing your name down.
Man, I don't even remember exactly what I was going to say. I was going to push back on something Kevin said about China. China only has their legs. Yeah, China only has their legs underneath them because of reforms under Deng that brought them closer to a market economy. So I just disagree with that. But I think Pisco's in the situation where he's going to have to...
Deng was a socialist. You know what Deng said? He said socialism is not poverty, get rich is glorious, right?
Deng was a socialist.
Why are you feeling at the housing market right now?
Oh, man.
So are you... Okay, so you're saying what Deng did was basically move towards market economy.
The conservative infighting.
What Deng did then, right? That's not communism then,
I don't agree with everything Deng did, but it's an objective fact that the reason China was able to get their feet back underneath them is because Deng brought back markets. Okay? So I'm about to defend you.
Yeah, guess what? Okay, Deng was based. Deng was a total chud. Why not be more like Deng then?
But
let me guess, we can't be more like Deng because he was a communist. Which is it?
This is not a socialism debate, Kevin. I was pushing back.
No, well, we're talking about economics. I love how liberals always do this. They do the whole
Kevin, the most socialist candidate running is Kamala Harris.
And then you bring this up, and they're like, well, no, actually, that's capitalist. And then you say, okay, let's do that then. And then they say, no, you're a communist.
Deng Xiaoping thought. Okay, let's bring it back to the economy and wait from China for a second.
Dude, they listed like 800 million out of poverty, and you're
oh my God, bro.
Harris are falling on that regard. So
yeah, 800 million under poverty. And
sure, Biden lifted a decent number of people out of poverty, although some of those gains were lost because we didn't continue our COVID stimulus after COVID, obviously.
No, I'm going to defend you, Kevin.
That's not true. That's not true. That's like CNN.
Absolutely true.
Oh my God! I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care.
Currently is crashing.
1948, dude.
I'm a Trump conspiracy theorist, bro. I don't watch CNN.
Now that we've drawn the lines in the sand over China, I think so. We had Cam, we had Kevin, or wait, Cam, did you finish responding to Pisco?
Cam was about to own me.
Yeah. Please own.
Not
Pisco,
really,
please.
but all right, Pisco, get ready, prepare.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that I think that Pisco was kind of in a position where he had to articulate a fundamental difference between America and China that would result in the policy Kevin was proposing, working in China and not working in America, which I don't think was fully done. That's not necessarily me coming for your balls, Pisco, but I think that wasn't articulated. I don't remember. I was going to respond to something else Pisco said, but I didn't write it down, so I forgot
immigration stuff. I talked about immigration stuff.
Oh yeah. There's more. Yeah, there's more encounters now, so obviously more people are being deported. I think the biggest problem right now with the immigration issue is that when we catch people, we release them. We don't hold them accountable to appear on their court dates.
Well, that's how the law works. What does Trump even want to do on that issue?
So, as a function of the limited number of beds that exist, and there are certain things that make one inadmissible.
I heard Trump say anything on the actual reforms that are needed.
And as a function of just not having enough space and not having enough resources, there are people who are supposed to be, under mandatory detention, according to the law, supposedly, who are let out. Right? That's what.
And this is something Trump wants to do: is build more facilities.
Okay, so Biden.
He actually didn't he appropriate FEMA funds for that?
Money given to the immigration system, including for housing, that kind of thing. But every time
you want to go here, Pisco, you want to go here?
Number one,
I don't think you want to go here.
When that does happen, people start conspiracy theories about how FEMA is, displacing money.
All right. Let's not pivot. Let's get back to the bipartisan border bill. I think you were referring to.
I'm trying. Yeah, I am 100% referring to that bill.
Okay,
and
great.
I'm happy to defend it on the merits. But I just want to be clear. When we start paying for housing, people like Kevin, I have to say, or I don't know, actually, if this is Kevin's issue, start yelling about how we're not giving money to American workers and we're giving it to migrants for housing purposes. That's number one. And number two.
No, I want to build public housing, dude. Okay. I want to build public housing like they did after World War II.
So based.
For illegal immigrants?
No, they're not citizens.
Okay. Yeah. So if you want to have mandatory detention programs, and if you think that the lack of mandatory detention programs because of lack of housing, which by the way is a problem that coexists throughout the entirety of the history of the Immigration and Nationality Act, just so you know. So Kevin's whole thing, like the borders are open because of what? Catch and release. He can't point to a single policy on which Biden administration is not enforcing the immigration law.
No, I can point to one. I can point to one.
It's because you guys have been run by capitalists.
Okay, you're all talking at the you're all talking at the same time, so nobody's saying anything. Okay, Kevin, 10 seconds. Please make it 10 seconds. Then we're bringing it back to Cam before going to LacTorre, who's been waiting very patiently.
Yeah. So it's been going on longer than Trump and Biden because you guys have been run by capitalists for decades, and they profit from illegal labor. That's why they keep the
so true.
Okay. So Trump. Biden. I just want to get this from Kevin. Biden. He's keeping the border open just as much as Trump is.
Do you agree with that? Hear you, dude.
No, absolutely not. Another thing that we need to do is work on border
I'm curious what LacTorre's policy that he doesn't think Biden's enforcing is.
I want to hear
Or explain this.
I'm sorry, I can't hear anything.
I can after this.
Quickly, I get 10 seconds. I'm sorry. There's other people that have been waiting the whole debate, and it's mostly been like 3 people. So I want to make sure that other people get to talk. So Pisco, you'll get 10, 15 seconds. Then we're going to Cam. Then we're going to the beautiful world of LacToid.
Sure. So this is the last thing I'll ask to Kevin. Since Kevin pointed to the open border policy of Joe Biden being one of continuing a regime of capital incentivizing illegal immigration, you would agree, wouldn't you, that the border is open under Biden to the same extent that it was open under Trump? And as you said, it pre-exists both of them. So that's correct.
That's correct,
right?
Yeah, and that's a problem. And if you're an actual nationalist, that should bother you.
Cam.
Okay, so the problem is that Trump was working towards a more secure border. I went to the border under Biden, and I shot a documentary, and I interviewed Border Patrol agents, and what they told me, and National Guard, and what they told me, and I'm going back in 6 days, what they told me was they literally watch people cross the border, they cross the Rio Grande, or they cross places where the river's not there, and they just let them cross, and then they bring them into open arms, and they take them into the system, right? That's the problem. We should be preventing them.
Once you cross the middle of that river,
that's how the law works.
In America, they're entitled to procedures. Now, what?
We can add security.
That's a big issue. That's how the law. That's the whole.
Should they follow the law? Should they follow the law, or should they not follow the law?
You're a lawyer. Change the law.
Follow the law, right?
You can only be a responder. You're gonna keep yapping like a dog, dude. Come on.
Yeah. So like when Kevin says change the law,
you keep asking me questions. You're going back to Kevin because you're afraid of me, bro.
I'm
so true.
Let's schedule a one-on-one debate. I'm not afraid of you at all.
I'm happy to, bro. I'm so happy to.
Oh, that'd be so awesome, man.
We need to increase border security measures.
Wait, I'll do a debate.
Was that Dylan? Oh, I thought Dylan was interrupting. Okay.
Oh no, anyway, I was locking the chains of fate. Now it has to happen.
This is what Trump was working to do, and Biden is not working to do. That's the fundamental difference. So with that being said, there were so many interruptions, and Pisco trying to go back to Kevin that I don't remember what I was even responding to at this point.
You were saying that because they were crossing the international borders, they were crossing the international borders, and I can't believe it. They're giving them procedures and
right. So put some buoys with some barbed wire.
That doesn't change the procedures that they have to go through. That doesn't actually address the issue, which is that immigrants are incentivized to go here because they're entitled to those procedures
Mexico great again.
that allow them to go to get into the country and stay there really easily.
Making Mexico great again. You're not going to see as many people coming over.
Let's switch over to the Mexican presidency.
Okay, an actual policy.
El Salvador, they're making themselves great again.
Oh no, okay. El Salvador, Mexico is great. We're talking about America. We're talking about Canadian. We're talking about America right now. Lactoid.
Yeah, we have more immigration than you.
Jesus Christ!
We have more immigration than you.
Canadian.
5 times as much.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Free speech is banned in Canada. Can we server mute? Thank you. Server muting the Canadian official Canadian censorship.
Wow. Based.
Thank you. Remain in Mexico.
They got rid of that policy.
When the Mexicans get here, we got to let them out in America. What did Biden do? Biden immediately reversed remain in Mexico.
That's not a case of them not enforcing the law. Didn't Pisco ask for a case of them not enforcing the law?
It is not at all.
Which they had.
Even 1%, even 0.5% of the numbers that people are talking about with respect to the border crisis. So you're citing the
wait.
as though that is at all.
No, it's because hold on. Just to be clear, I'm not. No. It's a pebble. It's a pebble compared to what we have now. Compared to what we have now, not compared to what we had then. Just to be clear, I'm not hawkish on immigration, but when you're saying that, there's no difference, Biden didn't do anything different, that's absolutely not true, right? Biden gets elected and he reverses a number of policies, the most significant of which is remain in Mexico. We want to talk about asylum cases.
Not hawkish on libertarian because libertarians
oh my God,
CEOs and beef packing plants.
Okay, yeah, you supported Chinese housing policy before, and China is currently undergoing a housing crisis since 2020.
No, that is true. I forgot about that.
Ridiculous housing policy.
That's a meme.
I knew you were a fucking communist. Anyway,
sure. Stock of about 1 billion units.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
And no, the reason why you're not hawkish is because you're a libertarian. You want to bring in illegal labor to pay them less than minimum wage. Exploit.
True.
I like tacos. I like Mexican food. It's good. And the women are attractive, right? That's the reason. But when it comes to
base.
By the way, just quickly, guys.
Actually, most base thing Lactoid has said. Wow.
But there's other
incredible.
Like, for example, tariffs. I saw you guys were clashing on tariffs earlier. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the tariff proposal of Donald Trump in a second. But Lactoid, you can finish up what you were trying to say.
I'm just going to finish up, right? Because Biden ended a number of things. The biggest one being remain in Mexico. When you're saying, we have no choice, we just they come in, it's international law, we got to let them out in America. It's absolutely not the case. Remain in Mexico. They can wait in Mexico while they wait for their proceedings. That can happen. Biden reversed it immediately upon election. Now, again, I'm not hawkish on immigration, but I don't think that it's fair to say, Trump and Biden are the same on the border. It's absolutely not true. And China's housing policy fucking sucks, like all communist policies, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, guess what? 94% own their own home versus 65% in America, where it's 50%.
Can they even officially own it?
Landlords are based.
Don't have a mortgage in China, dude.
Wow, base Lactoid, unironically.
A flower, bro. They're walls.
We've studied up on Ding Xiaoping.
Can't you what? Only lease it for 99 years in China? I don't even think you can officially own it.
We've been doing so good so far. Okay, Hutch.
Yeah, Cam brought up the Border Patrol. Don't you think it's a little bit untenable to bring them up when they endorsed the border bill that was negotiated?
Yeah, because they're desperate, right? I disagree with the border bill, and I'm happy to substantiate why I disagree with the border bill. But I'm sure, as I saw how desperate these people are down at the border, I met with a lot of people who are working on Operation Lone Star, and I'm going back to meet those people in 6 days. Like I said, they're desperate, and I'm sure they haven't read the bill, so yeah.
What they said was that it wasn't perfect, but it provided them with resources that they've been needing for decades.
Yeah, but we have a better solution.
Any kind of a bill that's crafted in a divided government is not going to make both sides 100% equally happy. But the Border Patrol Union, there was broad consensus within that organization that this bill would have afforded them a lot of funding and resources, training, extra men, extra people to process these claims, so we can get the wait time down from 5 to 8 years to 3 months. there was a lot of good stuff in that bill if you're actually serious about
border patrol,
dealing with catch and release programs.
It's my turn. Okay, so. Okay, so I'm happy to address that. Yeah, so the fundamental reason why I don't support the border bill is because the emergency powers granted in it are already largely powers the president has anyway and refuses to exercise. On top of that, those
he did exercise it after the bill failed to pass. He did exercise that. He did do that executive order, which is probably illegal. I think he's already been sued for it. It'll probably get struck down.
Per day over a 7-day period, which is
why is homeownership some magic goal for people? That is not good for labor mobility. Try to push homeownership up artificially. Yeah, I mean, well, the reason homeownership is a big deal in America is just because that's how a lot of like middle-class Americans build and store their wealth. I don't think it's a good system.
The average has to be 4,000, or on a mandatory basis, if 5,000 do, the issue would have to get almost twice as bad as it currently is for the president to exercise powers he already has. Sure,
so it added extra funding.
Wait, I thought didn't Biden exercise it? Isn't that why crossings are down because he did exercise?
In addition to that, sure, it did expand some funding and blah blah blah, whatever, great. It also expanded the legal apparatus for asylees to fight the government. Okay, so there were plenty of terrible things in this bill.
What did he mean expanded? I think he expanded.
If Republicans vote for it now,
I think he means it would have had more asylum judges.
Allow a border bill that actually addresses the issue to pass the next time.
It's going to be
an insurmountable mountain for Republicans to pass to get HR 2 passed. Okay.
Trump's opposition to this bill had nothing to do with the substance of the bill.
Prove
very openly.
Cite it.
Mitch McConnell, even Ted Cruz, I believe, said this. Lindsey Graham. You have multiple Republican lawmakers.
Speculation.
On the record
Mitch McConnell speculated. He had no evidence at all. He didn't hear it from Trump.
Okay, wait. I don't. Wait, guys. Wait.
Be quiet. Go ahead, Hutch.
Shush.
Trump's not.
No. You're getting too unruly, okay? I have to deport you.
Jeremiah just tried to like fucking co-opt Dylan Burns' position.
I didn't hear what he said first, so I don't know if it's speculation or not. But can I hear what these people said about the bill?
Yeah, they said that Donald Trump made phone calls and pressured Republican lawmakers to not give Joe Biden a win during an election year. It had nothing to do with the substance of the bill.
Not even disputed.
And if you have a problem, like if you have a problem conceptually with there not being any caps on the amount of people, like you said, it was 4,000 to 5,000.
Okay, my understanding. Biden did pass that executive order.
Like just not having a bill and then not having any caps. You say, well, it doesn't really matter because the president has that power. Wouldn't it be better to codify these rules? Wouldn't it be better to like?
Yeah, 1 second. I'll respond to that. I'll go ahead and respond to that, Hutch. Sure. Mitch McConnell said that Trump made calls to Republicans in Congress, told them to vote against it. He speculated
Biden's unlawful exective order is bad policy.
Never said that Donald Trump explicitly said that. Yeah, go ahead and say it for me.
Doubt that? Hold on.
Let me doubt that.
June 4th.
I'm not done, Hutch. The reason that the
President Biden announced today that he would impose a near complete ban on asylum for anyone across the border illegally.
Absolutely, I doubt that. The bill was shit, and Trump repeatedly talked about it.
So naive.
Exactly why
Trump had
let me hear. Wait. 1 second.
I'd like to get my licks in.
I want to hear from Cam why he doubts that, why he thinks that he was speculation and he would say something like that.
Yeah, because Trump's record on this bill has been absolutely clear. Every single time he's spoken about it, he said that it was a horrendous bill that was like a betrayal of America.
The Border Patrol Union supported a horrendous bill? The Border Patrol Union supported a horrendous bill.
Yeah, the Border Patrol supported a horrendous bill.
Because they're stupid, they don't know what they need.
No, I didn't say that. They probably hadn't read it. These people work 9 to 5.
They didn't read the bill. Border Patrol did not read the border bill.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, probably not. Yeah.
You're an idiot.
So, yeah, sure. All right. That's really talk Pisco, but every time I ask you for a source,
you have a low opinion of the union. You have a low opinion of the union. You think they didn't read the bill?
Well, to be fair, they are Trump
supporters, so now are we going to be doing tainting the well left and right here? Do I actually get to respond to what Hutch said about limits?
Sure, you can respond.
Guys. Perfect. Okay. So, Hutch, you said why would I not want to codify the limits and the abilities that the president has? Because the president already has these abilities, and the bill just restricts.
I feel like the stock market also gets spelled out more than the housing market does, Chad. Quantitative easing like directly inflates like stock prices. Doesn't really do the same for housing.
But what happens if the next Democratic president comes in and it's just totally open borders and doesn't want to enforce it? Now you don't have anything codified, and they can just do open borders or whatever, right? I mean,
okay, but the bill
that's what we have right now.
That's the current issue. That's the problem. Okay, and on top of that, you asked me. I'll say this again on why Trump why might Trump not be using this just to get a win, blah, blah, whatever. He openly endorses H.R. 2, which is a much better border bill that's currently waiting for approval in the Senate in a presidential signature. If Joe Biden got that bill passed and then signed it, guess what would happen? It'd be a huge win for Joe Biden. Huge border win for Joe Biden.
Next time you guys get a trifecta on government, next time you guys get a trifecta on government, you can do that, but you're in a divided government. You have a Democratic president.
That's not what I was saying. You asked me.
Why would you expect?
I know that Trump wasn't using it for a win, and I answered the question because it doesn't make any sense why he would continue to endorse H.R. 2.
Hold on. Why would you expect that a piece of Republican-crafted legislation should just be passed under a Democratic president? If you guys want to do that, get control of the government.
Because it's bipartisan. Both sides seem to believe
like that
support solving the border crisis. Joe Biden says he supports solving the border crisis.
Yeah, there are probably good or bad ways to solve the border crisis, right?
Slam dunk for
probably ways Democrats disagree with to solve the border crisis, I would imagine.
It was never actually bipartisan.
You accused the border. You accused the border patrol.
Langford helped with it, but nobody else did.
You accused the border patrol union of not reading the bill. I think Cam Higby hasn't read the border patrol bill.
You haven't read it. I've got it in front of me right now.
Or the Immigration and Nationality Act, which specifically states that applicants for admission within a certain parameter of the border bill, within a certain time period of when they are captured, are entitled to expedited removal procedures. These caps relate to a power to summarily throw people out of the country. That is not a power that the president currently has. Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, the president has the authority to suspend and make inadmissible certain categories of non-citizens. But the reason why we give people like procedures before you throw people out of the country is because banishment is an incredibly potent ability. We want to make sure that the people that we are banishing from the country are A, not entitled to be here, or B, not even citizens. That's the reason why we have procedures before we throw people out of the country. And what these cutoffs
So, Pisco, are you going to address my argument, or are you going to pivot? Because everything you're saying is a pivot.
Limit and tailor the authority of the president in these specific circumstances to summarily throw people out of the country, which the president under current law cannot do, right? The president cannot just throw out any alien in the Immigration Nationality Act's definitions just because he wants to. That is not an authority the president currently has. If you don't know that, you're
should
ignorant.
Be an
you don't know
Olympic
anything about immigration
athlete,
law.
bro, because you are good as fuck at running, dude. You should be an Olympic athlete.
Yeah. So
didn't they already agree to a one-on-one debate?
Like over here, bro.
You stated that the president does have the authority.
He has the authorities given in the border bill, the Emergency Powers Act.
That's what I said. He does not have the power. So I'm going to cite one power that he does not have.
Nobody has exercised them through executive action.
Yes, it's illegal.
So they could remain in Mexico, right, Pisco?
So it's not precisely the same. And also, I believe that is an illegal act by Joe Biden. I believe that that's one of the things I most criticize Joe Biden for, is something that I believe to be illegal and not authorized.
What?
He's being sued for it right now, I'm pretty sure.
The law, just so you know. Criminal and unlawful. So you're an
Is that an impeachable offense, breaking the law?
I'm once again going to school you on basics.
All you have is name calling because you don't know what you're talking about.
I'm once again going to school you on basics. Just because something is
I'm pretty sure the ACLU already sued him for it. I'll look it up.
Okay, but it's still an impeachable offense. Is it? If it's illegal, if you commit
well, anything's impeachable, right?
I don't think necessarily that illegal actions
so illegal actions are not impeachable.
I don't think that illegal actions are.
I guess.
I don't believe that illegal actions by themselves are sufficient for impeachment. No, I do not believe that to be the case. Every single president in the history of the United States has had some, well, at least in the modern history of the United States, has had some policies they've done deemed
Biden
unlawful by the
sued.
Supreme Court. So that's a ridiculous
order
statement that you just made. Once again, if you give me enough
executive
time,
order.
I will dismantle everything you're saying. And the
ACLU is sued Biden over new executive actions on the southern border.
Summarily throw aliens out of this country.
Yeah, you brought that up.
You know what?
He does not have that authority under the Immigration Nationality Act.
You're running like a track star.
I love the Cam Higby Pisco show as much as the next guy, but you guys already agreed to a debate in the future. So if you want to hash it out individually, you can be on the undercard of the next Hippy Dippy, and we can continue the show for everybody that wants to see it. But I want to give an opportunity because I did want to touch on the tariff stuff because it was talked about earlier, and I said we could maybe reshift to it here. But also I want to make sure that I'm not taking up too much of your time, because if we talk about tariffs and this goes on for a bit, we might not have enough time for the bonus topic on foreign policy. So I just wanted to check with you guys. Did you want to talk about the tariffs or just go straight on to foreign policy? Because I want to make sure that.
Please talk about the tariffs. Please talk about the tariffs.
I think foreign policy is really important. I think
I vote foreign policy.
I think they're both related.
Thank you, Econoboy.
No, God,
like,
please.
Seriously, look at chips.
It's gonna be a horrible discussion.
Oh, I'd love to talk about chips and science act.
Right?
So most of you are saying
if
foreign
you get
policy.
domestic manufacturing, you're not forced to defend
so
Taiwan.
it seems like most of you guys want to talk about.
You have more flexibility.
Okay, Kevin, I got your opinion. I think most of you guys want to talk about foreign policy. I think a few of you don't want to, but it seems most of you do. So if you want to talk about the tariffs thing, we can talk about it as the outro to this topic.
Rigged.
And so if you wanted to talk about the 20% universal tariff, you can. We're gonna start with, we'll start with Kevin Cassie for outros. And also for everybody at home, donations for this topic. You only got like a few more minutes because I'm gonna read through the list soon. So if you want to ask questions or anything about any of this topic, donate now. DylanBurns.tv. Okay, Kevin.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Dylan. So, yeah, no, tariffs, as far as operating within the economy as it exists right now, tariffs are one of the few things that you can get away with in like a liberal system that are actually advantageous towards your workers in terms of undoing the damage of the neoliberal revolution. So America and Canada used to make a lot of stuff, big factories, car manufacturing, steel manufacturing, right? And then that was all shifted overseas. How do you get that
this
back?
guy's econ. There's no way is the econ degree.
You can't. It's over. You got to play by our game and accept your service economy and your
even
free
like
jobs with no benefits instead of your one union manufacturing job. Tariffs give
worker benefits have only been increasing. Non-wage compensation has only been increasing. That's just entirely false, but okay.
Strategic about them. At the end of the day, Canada and the U.S. are both countries that are one of the few that can be self-reliant.
Bottom right guy, communist or something. He's a weird populist dude. I don't know.
For Canada, you can do everything at home. And doing that allows you to not be forced to fight wars to secure access to things like oil or steel.
Oh, so true. Yep, gotta bring that one in somehow.
By saying here, look, a lot of people say you hate immigrants, you hate migrants or whatever. No, I don't. I want to be clear. American CEOs and their lackey politicians are only there to exploit you. My message to migrants that do want to come in seeking a better opportunity for them and their families is to stop giving in to their brain drain of your countries and make your own country great again, like they're doing in Mexico under or El Salvador under Bukele. Bukele has reduced murders by 50x in the time that he's been in power. Remarkable. Sheinbaum is actively upholding workers'
There is like a brain drain aspect of it, but like it's so.
Here's the thing: migration is not done to help
blaming immigrants for leaving their country.
The developing world and alienate workers in the developed world. It's only done to divide and
for causing brain drain. Just seems goofy.
Thank you.
Okay.
RC.
Which point do you want me to reply to?
Oh, you can talk about anything. You could talk about tariffs. You could talk about anything. It's your section. Say whatever you want.
So did we decide to stay on tariffs, or are we gonna go to foreign policy?
I said that if you want to talk about tariffs, you can talk about it as the outro, but we're gonna move on to foreign policy.
Understood. So between Trump and Kamala, I imagine who has a stronger foreign policy position. Trump has a proven record to have a stronger foreign policy.
No, I said that this is the outro for the economic section, and then we're gonna move on.
Oh, I understand. Yeah. Got it. I misunderstood.
No worries.
Okay, so with I'm just gonna kind of reiterate what I was saying earlier. Actually, I wanted to make a point that I heard earlier. It was pretty early on in this section. I wrote it down, but there's so many subjects got brought up. So I think it may have been Pisco that brought up the fact that the Biden administration passed the Inflation Act, and that helped to bring down inflation. Act. So I
don't think it really. I probably was neutral on inflation. I don't think it increased or decreased inflation much. But
Reserve, which
brain drain is a thing, but allowing skilled workers to work abroad and send their remittances home mostly outweighs that. Oh, that's true. Yeah, remittances. I forgot about that.
0.2% at its peak, and the chairman at the time, I believe his name was Paul. I can't remember his last name. Paul V something. Paul.
Volcker, another kickbot. Let's go.
He's credited with reversing the inflation by increasing.
Also, we should just allow more like seasonal visas and stuff. Like allow immigrants to come here and work in construction. They can work here for either seasonally or just let them like work here for like a few years, and then they'll probably move back to their home country to retire. Like,
yeah, that's really all I wanted to say.
Understood. Now we're throwing it over to Pisco.
Yeah, I think that I never said that the Inflation Reduction Act was the primary reason that inflation came down. I do agree with you that the Federal Reserve's monetary policy almost certainly has a greater role in the reduction in inflation than any kind of fiscal policy or spending by the Biden administration. I said I credited them with a soft landing, and I'm using your standards, the standards of post hoc ergo propter hoc, whereas just because things happen in a certain time, we were giving credit for Donald Trump's economy under his
I think
regime.
the soft landing does have to do at least a little bit with Biden because of the
prices down. I think
just because I think the fiscal stimulus probably kept consumption spending up,
fluctuating, but they're investing in
probably mitigated any
bring,
paradox of thrift concerns there.
In medication, that's another one that we didn't really talk about. They're capping the price of insulin, and they're trying to
this
do
is true
other
as
drugs
well.
And so I think there are other reasons why we're having a soft landing where you're not seeing as much, not just you're lowering inflation, but you're also not seeing a recession that you can credit the administration for, or at least give them some credit for it. And I think that Econoboy can speak more about that. In general, I think the economic situation has been it was a big toughie for a while for factors completely outside of Biden's control, just like the COVID pandemic in some respects out of Trump's control, but they have done and performed exceptionally well. The legislation they have passed has invested in things that have good returns, like the Infrastructure Act or the Chips and Science Act, which I don't think anyone here even disputes. And so in general,
Cam doesn't like the Chips and Science Act for some reason. I don't know why he hasn't gotten to elaborate.
We need to see more of these policies and more ambition. I do agree with Kevin. There's some.
I don't know what he's probably just going to say, like, no factories have opened yet. When, like,
administration can take, and
obviously they take years to open. Like, we should have expected the whole open. My guess would he's going to mention delays, and he's going to mention that factories haven't opened. That's my guess for what he's going to say. The Chips and Science Act, we'll see.
In general, the administration has not been the reason for the increase in illegal immigration. They've been trying to find solutions, but it's going to require congressional involvement. And the one piece of bipartisan legislation that was available to address that solution was stopped by Donald Trump.
Okay, throwing it now over to Lactoid.
Yeah, so I do blame the Biden-Harris presidency for some degree of inflation. Obviously, the coronavirus and also the war in Ukraine is going to affect that as well. I'm not saying it doesn't. As global supply chain disruptions are going to affect inflation as well. But government spending absolutely also impacts inflation. And when you have Biden passing all the bills that he has and raising spending in the way that he did, this is absolutely going to create a inflationary pressure. We didn't. I think anyone
disagrees with that. I would just say the trade-offs are probably worth it.
That I think Trump is doing good, or that he did good, and then he's proposing to do good, right?
Also, there was no way to know before he passed it exactly how much it would increase inflation.
Is obviously a fantastic policy. But I want to contrast this with some of I think the economic illiteracy proposed or spoken about by the Harris candidate going into this election, right? I mean, you have statements in favor of what is essentially rent control.
Oh my God!
Price controls in the called
price controls on groceries.
These have been universally panned.
Wait, what has Harris even said on rent control? I don't think Harris has said anything on rent control.
On unrealized gains, unrealized capital gains. That's particularly, I think, scary. Mass proposals for spending. I mean, it's just not good.
Mass spending, so base.
A smaller government. Trump isn't good, but he's absolutely better than Kamala Walz, and so consider that in your when it comes time to voting on November 5th.
Okay, Pondering Politics.
Yeah, so
I need leather.
I'm super quick. So a couple of things.
That's what I need string for, so I can make the cow farm.
Manufacturing claims that were made earlier.
Today, Biden's fiscal stimulus caused some excess inflation. It's fair enough, but why ignore that it was actually a successful stimulus and the U.S. is doing super well? Yeah, that's the thing is that you should have to acknowledge that trade-off, but people don't. People just like blaming him for inflation. But he doesn't get any credit on the low unemployment.
So this idea that the Republicans get to be the tail that wags the dog.
Well, I mean, I give credit for it.
On the other foot, Republicans would never permit admit it. Joe Biden is the most powerful man on earth. Donald Trump should not be given carte blanche to set the legislative agenda. Republicans have an inferior position. So this idea that they should have opposed the border bill because they didn't get everything they want and Democrats didn't give them everything they want is absurd. That's just politics. Democrats should have gotten more than the Republicans did. And by the way, that bipartisan border bill was relatively conservative. I would argue it's much more conservative than it was liberal. There were 75 senators, I think, total in the initial rounds of negotiations towards the end. So all 50 Democrats supported. I think it was 15 Republicans. And then, of course, Donald Trump began to voice his opposition. If Donald Trump actually had good reasons.
What's up, RD? By Bethany. Oh my God, it's another bot. It's another graphic designer. Oh my God, why are there so many of them today?
Campaign purposes, right? Because that would actually give more legitimacy and more cover to Trump. He killed the bill because it was a cynical wedge issue that he wanted to exploit. And yeah, at the end of the day, even the Biden-hating Border Patrol union supported it. I have no reason to believe that they didn't read the bill. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know why they would endorse something, basically brought forth by, at least in part by Democrats.
You're a bot.
If they opposed Biden, right? Presumably it's because
probably
they
not
read
bot,
the
but
text.
it is just someone proud in graphic design.
Would give Biden a political victory in a tense election year is because they actually appreciated the merits of the bill, at least to some extent or another. So I don't know. I just thought that whole tangent was absurd.
Perfect timing. Throwing it over to Hutch.
Yeah, I want to take the time during my outro to address something that's been salient over the last couple of weeks. We didn't really get to touch on it while we were having this conversation, but there's a lot of discourse going on right now about the amount of relief that people should get during an emergency, the amount of FEMA funds that should be dispersed. And I just want to point out, Joe Biden has advocated for Congress to come back into an emergency session and expand these funds. And it's Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House,
who doesn't want to call them back.
Put the brakes on that and said, no, we're not going to get to that until after the election. This is just one example of many that we can discuss where Democrats are more open to providing direct relief to Americans. I'm not going to spend all my time getting into all the different policies. We already had this discussion.
Oh, wow, she followed.
So thank you guys for letting me speak.
Don't worry, I'm not here to sell you anything. Don't believe you. Don't believe you.
Econoboy.
I don't know why I have the chat up. I don't need the chat up there.
These are all fantastic points.
You're
muted, Econo.
Oh, sorry. I was being polite. Goddammit. Okay, I had my mic muted when I wasn't talking. Unlike certain Canadians on the panel. But anyway, Anyway,
wow,
so sorry.
Unfortunately,
we got bogged down into an immigration discussion. Look, I think immigration in general is good. I don't really find.
Please, at least mention the monetary independence of the Fed. Please.
Problem. There's certainly some problems.
Please, it has to come up at least once.
And to the extent that we care about that, obviously, the bill that was proposed that Biden said he would sign would address that. Trump killed that bill. So I don't know. I don't think he really takes it too seriously as an issue, just as a way to appease his base, which likes to hold mass deportation now signs, which is, of course, a pretty insane position, all things considered. Look, overall, I'll talk about some of the things that I think are good. Manufacturing jobs increased by 1 million plus under Obama. And so it's really more about the policies, not just the net job creation. What did these administrations do in order to increase manufacturing job, increase manufacturing investment, and what is the actual status of that investment? Construction spending on new factories under Biden is literally 2.5 times what it ever was under Trump. And that's because of things like the IRA, Infrastructure Investment Act, CHIPS Act, things like that. RC, you mentioned that you like that Trump incentivizes investments in manufacturing. Well, he didn't seem to do a whole lot of that by the numbers. Biden and Kamala did do a whole lot of that, and it's because of their policies. Let's take the CHIPS Act, for example. After passing that bill, various manufacturers announced over $400 billion, $500 billion in investments in new manufacturing.
I think it was more than that. I think it was $800 billion total.
Subsidies available for industry, which were passed as a part of that CHIPS Act. That's a good thing. It protects American industries and also ensures that we have investment in crucial industries. Some conservatives have criticized this because the investment isn't immediately realized, but that's because chips manufacturing plants take a long time to build. But one thing that Kamala and Walz have spoken to is the inefficient permitting process. That's something you never see lip service that Trump talks about. He just talks about ending regulations vaguely. They've taken
Econoboy flattening manufacturing numbers because it worked well with conservatives because he thinks increasing manufacturing is good. I don't know.
We've already got hundreds of billions of dollars of planned investment. Let's make it come online quicker. That's smart policy.
I mean, probably both.
That's not to mention that, look, welfare-inducing policies, raising taxes on the wealthy.
I would imagine he thinks some level of it
things like expanded child
good
tax
at
credits,
least,
bigger
but
child tax credits than Trump or Vance have ever proposed or ever done. These things are good. These things
I don't know how industrial policy ability is.
Provide a ton of middle-class jobs that people can actually obtain. People that don't need advanced degrees in order to do. If you care about the middle class, if you care about them keeping more of their paycheck, if you care about less children living in poverty, if you care about expanding things like Social Security and protecting things like Medicare, these are the things that the Biden, Harris, Walz administration, Biden administration currently, Kamala administration in the future, have promised to do. These are much better for American workers than huge tax increases through universal tariffs. That's what Trump has proposed.
Okay, now we're going to throw over to Cam Higby. And Cam, I trust you to stay within the bounds as I go to use the bathroom. I expect 0 slurs. I'll be right back.
Don't worry. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so the Chips and Science Act was absolute and complete dog shit. So the problem with the Chips and Science Act is it did increase a lot of manufacturing funding, as you guys said. But the problem is that it has incredibly insane DEI standards, including requirements to hire ex-convicts, that has actually resulted in the largest chip manufacturers in the United States completely halting their factory productions. That's going to be the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company that was going to start a foundry in Arizona, which has completely halted its, production.
Was that because of the DEI standards?
Who completely stopped the, the building of their factory or their
He's just mentioning the delays.
Arizona.
Most of the projects have not been delayed, by the way.
Really hurting the semiconductor manufacturing in the United States.
Well, that wouldn't have happened at all without the Chips and Science Act, right?
You said that Trump's thing is he's going to end regulation vaguely. That's what he says, blah, blah. That sounds almost exactly like what Kamala Harris says on her policy website. In all 3 paragraphs of her, policy about make rent more affordable, she rambles on about cool things that Joe Biden does, and then she says, we're going to build houses, with absolutely no substantiation of how she can do that. So she's going to cut red tape. Doesn't specify what red tape she's going to cut. Doesn't explain how much money she's going to use. How in depth does he have to go?
I have
doesn't even
I'm going to pull up the list again. The list of all the things the Biden Harris administration did to actually cut that red tape. There are like 6 things that they did, especially with like the housing and urban development, like giving grants to communities.
Both the Penn Wharton School of Business and the Congressional Budget Office project that the Inflation Reduction Act will not reduce inflation at all. And if it does anything related to inflation, it will nominally increase inflation. On top of that, it's a
nominally increase inflation. What does that mean? Can you have a real increase in inflation?
$1 to climate change proposals, which, by the way, adjusted for today's dollars, is the exact same expenditure of the Vietnam War. So we're about to spend the same amount of money we spent on the Vietnam War on climate change proposals, rather than reducing inflation like Joe Biden lied and said he was going to do in the bill that is fallaciously named. So on top of that, I already addressed the things. You keep bringing up this post-Argo Proctor Hawk thing, which is complete bullshit because your side does it more than anybody else. When they blame Trump for COVID, which makes absolutely no sense considering it affected the entire developed world. Trump lost manufacturing jobs. Like 10,000 in 2019? Trump had the largest overall growth in manufacturing jobs of either presidents, Biden or Trump. I'm looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics right now. Trump had astronomical growth
Democrat
in
data.
Manufacturing jobs in the first 2 years of his presidency, adding more than 400,000, nearly 500,000 manufacturing jobs, with a slight dip in 2019, which then returned to its full capacity. Trump also had the largest bring back of jobs during the pandemic between him and Joe Biden. Or sharpest increase.
Inflation also affected the entire world. Yeah, I know. Why?
I think I've established that pretty much. Mitch McConnell doesn't like Trump, so obviously he's not gonna like try to support Trump on this.
He's a rhino.
Even bring that up.
Okay. Let me go through some quick donation messages before we move on to the next topic. Let me check them out. There's a few of them. One from a fellow, I don't know who this is, some weirdo called Pondering Politics. Fact-checking Higbee, the founding fathers did indeed alter court size for partisanly political reasons.
The haste move by Pondering Politics here.
To preserve federal
donating to fact-check him.
But Jefferson reversed it. Lol.
Yeah, Cam Higby's history sucks. I mean,
okay. Well, I mean, okay.
That did happen. It was long.
Fact check him on the.
And be wrong if we did it again now.
Inflation Reduction Act and Chips and Science Act.
I'm not saying that I know it's wrong. I'm just reading the $20 donation for Pondering. I don't know.
It's really funny when you yap like a dog, and every single time I ask you to source something, it's this. Crickets, dude, nothing. You run like that fucking.
Nice. He's a fucking Discord soundboard there.
What if you asked me to source? You can let's think on that. What did you ask me to source that I could not source?
Yeah, bro. I asked you to source a bunch of stuff about the fake.
Like what? Name one.
I don't remember exactly what you're saying.
That's actually he brought up Mitch McConnell again in his closing.
Peter Thiel stuff.
Yeah, I asked you about Peter Thiel.
He was citing Mitch McConnell. That's the reason it got brought up.
Wait. Didn't substantiate that he has Peter Thiel connections, associations?
No, you didn't. You didn't substantiate the fact that like JD Vance must be like Peter Thiel because he used to hang out with him.
That's not my claim. That's not my claim.
Your claim was okay.
I
This is what you did. You said RC proved that JD Vance's business experience is a good thing, not a bad thing.
I was trying to pin
this on you to prove that.
This is meta.
It's a bad thing. You're the one arguing that it's a bad thing.
People can look behind the scenes of what I was doing. So what I was trying to do is have Kevin Castley fight against you guys. That's what I was doing, and it worked.
It's obvious that's what you're going to do.
Yeah,
That's
what occurred. I sicked Kevin Castley on you guys, and I got him to acknowledge.
Yeah, because you couldn't argue for yourself. Obviously,
we didn't know you needed. It's funny to watch you guys. It's funny to watch you guys fight. It's like
it's funny to watch you fucking flounder.
Yeah. So I never made a claim that I never made the claim that he must follow Peter Thiel no matter what. That being said,
no, that's what you said. You were arguing that his connection with Peter Thiel must mean that his business experience is a negative, not a net positive. The burden is on you to prove that, not
so you don't even remember the chronology. I asked the question of RC. I asked the question of RC.
Okay, we got like 10 more donations. You guys can have the one-on-one debate. You guys are going to be on the undercard next show. How much stage time do you two need?
I just want to clear the record. I asked the question of RC's, are you troubled by these connections? I didn't make a claim that and I even said in my thing, I'm not making the claim. And so he's just wrong on the chronology.
So why would you bring it up then? Why would you bring it up then?
To fuck with you guys to have Kevin Castley fight you.
Because you can't argue, bro.
The reason why I'm winning the debate is because I'm on the side of the people and you guys are on the side of your parties. That's the difference, okay?
I'm so glad he's on the side of the people here.
Side of the people, everybody. Speaking
that's actually a good point. You guys are like uniform lockstep, okay? It's like NPC energy, 100%.
From YOLO Swag 42069. How do the panelists feel about Peter Thiel funding JD's first Republican primary to the tune of $15 million in 2022?
Did you want a Hippy Dippy? Would a guy drop the N-bomb? I don't think so, no. Not from my memory.
Thiel is contributing to the campaign.
I didn't really watch the old Hippy Dippy. That was before my time.
This isn't like a... What? I don't know who this is for. So I guess it's free for all? Who wants to define what a tariff is? Okay.
Tax on imports.
Tax on imports, okay.
Surprised.
You're surprised?
Somebody should tell Trump that.
Yeah, someone should tell Trump that.
From Warlock, $5 to the Trump supporters on the panel. Can you please explain what? Okay, it's another question of what tariff is. They really want
which one?
Tariff. A few people have given money for that. Jesus.
Wait, like I said, I didn't watch
Trump
it.
Doesn't know what a tariff is. I thought the claim was that Trump's bad.
No, he's asking if we know what a tariff is.
No, you're asking if the Trump supporters know what a tariff is. Do you think Trump knows what a tariff is?
Yeah,
I mean, he's done
tax on imports.
On tariffs, obviously.
That's not the way he talks about them. He talks about them like China's paying them. Like he talks about them like they're not going to affect trade at all.
With the tariffs, does he mean like China or does he mean like America? I don't know what he means.
Trump does not understand what tariffs are. For God's, can we just, guys, to the conservatives on the panel, fucking Trump does not know what a fucking tariff. Anytime this man
true.
What a tariff. You're living in another universe. Every time Trump describes what a tariff is,
it's a colloquial. When you say China's gonna pay for it or whatever, it's a colloquial, dude. We all know what he's talking about.
It's colloquial.
We all know. People don't know what he's talking about. That's the issue.
That's like saying it's colloquial.
I have the David Pakman clip.
And we also get to get rid of slave labor in China, dude.
It's a national security issue is the thing.
It is.
It's like
which is why we put universal tariffs and everything, because clearly
colloquial for you're gonna pay the check.
Clearly us importing bananas from Guatemala is a national security issue.
Short-term profit.
Kevin, we agreed to not talk about tariffs. We're talking about foreign policy, goddamn.
Liberals, we're moving. We got to get through these questions.
Like we can watch this in a second. So many people don't know. So many people think Trump is right about tariffs.
From Ben Brody, $20. How do the conservative members of the panel feel confident that Trump and Vance will run the economy better despite spending twice what Biden-Harris did?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
and printing most of the money.
Trump's economic record. I think you can like argue back and forth about like the amount of debt that Trump's going to add to the like national debt or debt. It's actually not even debt. It's deficit spending. But like a lot of times, what's
just so people know.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. You don't.
When you run a deficit, it adds to the debt camp.
No, but you can replace deficit spending with more revenues. Anyway,
what? You can replace deficit spending with more revenue? Wait. What?
What? Here, can't finish.
What does that mean?
What was the question?
It's not even true, by the way.
The question was, how do conservative members of the panel feel confident Trump and Vance will run the economy better despite spending twice with the Biden-Harris presidency?
I don't think that's true.
They've added twice. The Trump-Pence administration did add twice as much to the national debt as President Biden and Vice President Harris have.
I'm out of cult now.
Proportionally, Obama added more. He doubled the national debt. We use proportions here. We're talking about the economy. We use proportional growth, right? So
Trump
Obama
added
doubled
more
the national debt.
in a 4-year term than any president.
Fair enough.
Yes, that's how our numbers work.
Wait,
you lose on fiscal responsibility.
I think the question was for me, right?
It was for all the conservative members, but you were the one.
For me or for people on my side, but not for
You're constantly worried about
let me just answer.
He's going
weak behavior.
Hold on, Hopper.
Just real quick. The question's flawed. Like, he didn't spend twice as much. It could be true that like the debt increased twice as much or whatever, or there was twice as much deficit or something along these lines because of the tax cuts, but that's different than spending twice as much. So the question's flawed.
Whoa, okay, that's dishonest.
Different how?
The tax cuts don't really count as deficit
spending.
spending.
Wait, but that's a difference in revenue, though. Right? He lowered the revenue.
Tax cuts are different than spending.
Which leads to more deficit spending.
No. But consequentially, it's the same because you're not contributing as much to paying off the debt if you cut taxes.
Yes, but they're different. Yeah,
they are
different.
No
one is arguing they're the exact same. It's arguing they have the same effects on the deficit.
No. For me, consequentially, they are incredibly different.
Because you're a libertarian and you're cringe.
You're like a libertarian.
Yeah, okay, whatever. The question is flawed. Am I wrong? I'm not wrong. Move on.
Well, no, the question is flawed because spending's good. Spending's
true.
If we want to get to foreign policy, these are supposed to be like 5 to 20-second answers, and each one of these are like a tiny little civil war. Okay.
This is way better than foreign policy.
Speaking of civil war.
Okay. Let's get through these quickly. Okay. Nate Glode. Can you ask Economics Boy why he has 2 gay flags with his American flag? Also, deleting the Maryland flag in the background.
Listen, okay, I know the guy who sent that. He's from New York, okay? He has no room to talk. Texas, much less gay state than New York, if you ask me.
True.
Not anymore.
Castillo Fury with $5. Would anyone on the panel agree to more Ellis Island type of entries?
I don't know. What does that mean?
I don't know what that means.
Wait, what does that mean?
I think it just means
I think he wants us all to go back to black and white.
Literally put them at Ellis Island or what?
I don't know.
No, he obviously means like unvetted immigration.
I don't think we can check.
Like the founders intended, they were pretty open borders.
It was probably like SDL.
I mean, Ellis Island was part of America, so I don't know what to say.
No, Ellis Island was just a fucking place where they crossed through. Jesus Christ. Holy shit. Is this what he has to figure out?
Wait, Cam, you understand what
Cam and Pisco hate each other, guys.
I just want to know, like,
Island is just
you guys are
idiots that they entered through.
You guys don't know what Ellis Island style immigration means? Cam, in your own words, what does Ellis Island style immigration mean?
Yeah, it seems like what the person was asking is if we're cool with unvetted immigration or largely unvetted immigration.
I don't think that's what that means.
Drastically reducing the vetting process of the current immigration system and letting way more people in.
Wait, nobody's in support of that, right?
I'm in support of that.
Let's keep going. We've talked quite a bit. It was supposed to be like a 5 to 20-second answer. Anyway, moving on, because we don't even know what that question really means. Demaculus, what a name. Would anyone on the panel be in favor of either candidate stopping all military aid to Ukraine? Not really related to the topic.
No. It's going to be related to the next topic, though.
It's going to, so we can hold off on that, actually. And one second. Trump's tariffs idea will kill this economy. We will pay a shit ton more for imported goods, and it will create more tension with other nations. $5 from Cult Dog.
True, they'll put.
But in the long run, we'll have amazing things all the time.
Okay,
Exactly, Pisco. Great job, great answer. It's so true.
It's ironic. I don't agree with Kevin. Yeah. I don't even think you do either, Cam. I don't know why you have such a bone.
With what?
Why you always targeting
all your answers, bro? Because every time I speak, the first person who starts yapping like a dog is you. That's why I have such a thing for you, bro. Want to kiss? What's the deal here? All right, chill out. Can I answer this?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I doubt tariffs are not going to destroy the United States economy. They're going to foster in like immense benefit in the long term. And even if they did like,
universal tariffs and everything at 10%,
that's an argument for not having them. When we abolished slavery, it absolutely destroyed the Southern economy. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have abolished slavery. And right now, we're currently using slave labor in other countries, or our producers are.
Oh my God!
And I think preventing them from doing that.
Couldn't we also,
regardless of any negative side effect in the economy.
If we really care about that so much, we could probably ban that easier than 10% tariffs and everything.
If you think that those tariffs will lower the incidence of slavery, then maybe you have a point. But what is your evidence that lowering or increasing tariffs will like get rid of slavery? I just don't
because the primary country is China. If you impose a 60% tariff on them, people are going to come to the United States to produce, not in China. So
I'm sorry, I asked this obvious. Do you have any evidence that increasing tariffs lowers the rate of slavery in countries that we import from?
It's not going to reduce the rate of slavery in those countries.
Okay, so it's not even. It's just going to change.
Produced by slavery. We're going to reduce
what we buy.
It worked there, right?
New factory construction record high under Biden, not Trump.
Wait, can I break this down with a really quick syllogism? Okay.
Sure.
Perfect. Sure. Okay. American products produced by slavery de-incentivize producers from producing in the places that have slavery. Our products stop being used by produced by slavery. Okay. Us not producing with slavery reduces.
But slavery doesn't actually decrease.
Market of China. Holy shit.
That's correct, though, right?
Fucking hell.
It's not a syllogism, and
yeah, but that doesn't matter.
All right, well,
I want to move.
If it's a syllogism or not.
We gotta move on.
Let's
keep going because we got more stuff to talk about. The next question is also about tariffs. How can a tariff be done strategically enough to avoid counter tariffs from other countries?
Probably not.
No,
most of the time when tariffs get enacted,
you should expect
go for it, Kevin.
that they're going to counter tariff you, and that's actually a good thing because that's accelerating the process of you going through the growing pains of
harms U.S. exports.
They're actually helping you. It just doesn't look like it right away if you're listening to like Paul Krugman, some other liberals or something. But if you're listening to like actual people that want to be self-reliant, that is
unlike
a
Paul
growing
Krugman.
pain to get to where you need to be. Like
not a real person.
When you start going to the gym, you get those DOMs. It hurts for 2 weeks, right? But you keep at it, you push through it, and you're better for it, right? Let's go.
That's true, Kevin. Based.
Pondering, did you want to say something? I saw that you were going to say something for a second. And then...
Oh, I was laughing at Econoboy's comment where he was just like, "Go ahead, take it away, Kevin." That just made me laugh.
He's got it, guys.
Now I think we've gotten through. Oh my god.
Wait, where the hell did I?
These guys love you. I don't know what it is. $20 no message. Praise the Lord from Alequin. And Faith donated $20 earlier. No message. Thank goodness. Kinavo Kingelman with $10 said, "Hey Dylan, here's a general question for the panel. How is tariffs a good idea when America's lack production of many important goods and companies will likely pass the cost on to consumers?"
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point that like there can be some reasons why import substitution or these policies that Kevin like in certain target areas, I think it can make sense for sure, 100%. In national, security situations, food production, all that kind of thing, I think that you'll find some agreement in some tariffs by liberals on this panel. The problem is, I think that the assumption that all tariffs are good or that we need to specialize in every single industry, I don't think that's a good assumption. I think that it could hurt other potential markets or industries that rely on imports or goods for which we literally
like
have
we cannot tariffs on steel and aluminum.
But the problem is being reliant on other countries, though, right? Like Canada and the U.S. especially are countries that don't have the excuse. Like we're not Andorra, we're not
good allies. We shouldn't. Should we have any barriers between us?
No. Well, okay, that's different. I'm talking about we're two countries that can be self-reliant. We'll have a better relationship.
He keeps saying can be self-reliant. The standard of living would probably be a lot lower if we were self-reliant, right?
About manufacturing spending and reshoring manufacturing to America. The administration's policies that led to a record investment in the spending on construction of new factories, which will lead to record employment, at least like local records and employment in manufacturing, is the Biden administration. Subsidies for domestic industry work better than tariffs.
Guess who pushed them in that direction? Trump changed the game in 2015 with the protectionist rhetoric. Had Trump
He's not entirely wrong about that point.
They would still be doing Obama's.
Well, I would argue Bernie contributed as well in the primary.
They would still be. No. Trump was the one who got that discussion rolling. But you're correct.
Kevin,
Biden did more than
terrible policies.
The guys that did better policies for manufacturing were the both of you made your points. We got to move on, or we're not going to talk about foreign policy at all. I didn't expect this much. 2 last donations, and we're done. No more donations on this section. Okay. This one's not a question. Question for Hutch, though. Technically, it's a question. Are those headphones active hearing protection? Look like my Rangers in my range bag. I have a Sennheiser 569's closed back for noise cancellation, but the audio quality is bad.
No, these are open back, and they're better for like simulating surround sound. So I like them a lot.
Cool. And $10 from Patches. Last one. In 30 seconds, this is for Cam specifically, so nobody else, okay, after this, because we got to move on. In 30 seconds, defend Trump's trade war with China It cost a record number of jobs in manufacturing and defense jobs with de facto embargo on Chinese products.
Yeah,
China
again,
bad. Hate China.
Is all stuff that we've already said before, Kevin and I. Reducing the reliance on China is good for many different reasons, for the reduction of using products that are produced by slavery, overall reduction of China's slave market. In addition to that, not being completely reliant on our enemies. So like we shouldn't, like what if something happened, like we got dragged into some global conflict with China and they produce 90% of the shit we use, then we're fucked, right? We're not getting anything. So we need to be producing things in America. And on top of that, I think people grossly underestimate how quick people who want money will fill the gaps in the market if we have a lack of certain products, especially commodities. People will be bursting at the seams to fill that gap because they can make more money. You don't want to pay 60% more for your products? Well, I'm going to produce it here in America, and I'm going to produce it better, and I'm going to sell it to you cheaper.
Which costs more.
It'll happen overnight, starting like whenever. I mean, I'd be surprised if it's not happening already in preparation of Trump potentially getting elected, people going and starting to produce things. There was one more thing that I wanted to say. What was it? I actually think that the blanket tariff, I don't know that I would necessarily agree with the blanket 20% tariff. I would be fine with tariffing most countries, but maybe not like super close allies like Canada, the UK, Israel, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, Israel. Now we're going to move on to the last topic of the day.
If you want to chat with me live, sub here or go to Nonfon420 on Twitch or Kick via the links below. Once again, please like and sub to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support me, and I'll make sure to reply to any question you ask. See you guys next time.